So, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening, y'all? It's me coming back at you again with another live stream vid. It's been a while. It's been a minute. I've been doing a lot of my rounds with other live stream hangouts, or I keep saying hangouts, but live stream platforms the last couple weeks, I would say. So, back doing this one on a hosting one for a change. Got to do a better job being consistent. I've said this many times, but it is what it is. Sometimes you get sidetracked by the most. So I just want to say, happy weekend, happy Sunday to everyone out there that may be watching or listening. So let's get to it. Let's go down to the range of topics that I have down on my list or on my ticker. So first things first, we're going to start with the Canelo. Ooh, somebody made a comment on here. Ross Clot. What's up, bruh? I'm banned from the MOBC list. Okay, we'll talk about that later. But we'll start with, before shout out to the MOBC, by the way. So let's start with Canelo parting ways with Golden Boy in the zone. Now, this story came out over the weekend. Um, Now, a lot of people are viewing this as a Canelo victory via litigation, or some people are viewing this as Canelo's victory via settlement. Um, the bottom line is that Canelo got his way, but I think he got his way as far as from a compromising perspective. And what I mean by that is that Canelo, what you call it, pretty much did not get the remaining monetary funds that was left on his contract. Thus, as far as a compromise, Golden Boy and the Zone, knowing that this litigation was going to drown them out for at least a year, from the looks of it, based off of the situation between both parties, I think they thought it would be best just to go ahead and let him loose and let him go his way and just reserve your revenue and resources to other fighters. So, I mean that would be the best logical move for the Zone and Golden Boy. But at the same time, you could say that it's fair to say that Canelo was a guy who pretty much is the ultimate victor here because of the fact that he can do his own thing. He doesn't have to be tied down to a long-term deal with a promoter. He can fight. He can do things on his own terms as far as a fight by fight basis is concerned. He could shop around in between networks. That's the flexibility that he will be able to have at this point. Now, as far as Golden Boy of the Zone is concerned, this is a huge setback for them as far as gaining revenues with subscribers and gaining revenues for their boxing events, because you have to understand, and we all have to say, shout out to Mala and Ross Clot in the chat and Rock89, is that Canelo and the Zone have built their entire streaming platform behind Canelo's name for the most part. I know Anthony Joshua fights there here and there, but he's really fighting there on a fight by fight basis. He doesn't, just like Canelo, he's not really active year round. I mean, they all fight twice a year. Um, that's the point. And another thing is that their subscriber count is going to go down. So this is going to be a very challenging situation for the Zone, and particularly Golden Boy. Now, who's going to be the next chap? Who's going to be their new flagship fighter or mainstream fighter, as you want to say, who's going to bring in the traffic and revenue to the Zone? I know they're going to try to now. They're positioning Ryan Garcia and Virgil Ortiz to take the helm of that position. But the problem with that situation is that Ryan Garcia is nowhere in the position, or neither is Virgil Ortiz. They're both nowhere in the position of Canelo Alvarez. Nowhere in that position right now. In fact, Ryan Garcia has not been very happy with his financial situation with the Golden Boy. So there could be a possibility that he might want to part ways. He might take this to the litigation and get out of his contract with Golden Boy as well. So that's the way I see it at this point. Now, as we know, as many of you may not have heard, Golden Boy is currently renegotiating their contract with the Zone at this point. Now, the way I look at it, and this is just my theory, the way I look at it, it seems to me that Golden Boy will not receive the amount of funding they were getting for their events like they were getting when they had Canelo under their banner. Because you have to keep in mind that the reason why Golden Boy was getting the funding was to back off the fact that Canelo's commitment. So that was the strings that were attached to the contracts via Canelo's contract with Golden Boy via the Zone. So yeah, we'll see how that pans out. Now people are wondering again. That's the way I see it, but then again, who knows? Maybe Golden Boy will not be able to renew their contract with the Zone, so that will put them in a very very tough position on where they're going to shop for a network provider here in the U.S. Now, some people could argue, is this the end of Golden Boy Promotions? No, I don't think so. It's a long shot at this point, but at the same time, I say not their stranglehold, but their position in the U.S. market can further will further decline in a way, given the fact that Canelo is no longer under that banner. So, the one thing for Canelo for sure is that, as I mentioned earlier, that he gets to shop around freely on networks to fight on a fight by fight basis, but he will be accessible to the fans who are not able to get access to his fights, given the fact that he fought on the Zone for 2 years. Now, mind you, the Zone is not a traditional TV platform. They are OTT, which is over the top on video on demand platform. Whereas it is required as a consumer to have broadband services to get access to his fights. And unfortunately, fans who live in rural areas of America or rural areas of Mexico were not able to get access to his fights. So now that he'll be able to fight on a traditional TV network, from the looks of it, that could be the case. They will be able to get access to him again. So that he would definitely benefit from the fact that he's a free agent and he could go fight on different platforms on a fight by fight basis. So then again, who knows? Maybe Canelo excuse me, may do a deal directly with the Zone. Who knows? But from the looks of it, doesn't look like that's anytime soon from the looks of it. So we'll see how that goes. Now, my theory is that he might end up on Showtime, given the fact that he has a great relationship with Steve Espinoza, and then there's more options for him to as a list of opponents is concerned, as opposed to Top Rank. So you may never know. We'll see what happens. Now let's go into the next topic here. Let's go over the fight reviews real quickly. Then I'm gonna get over to the Donald Trump situation, because that will be more of the lengthy of this live stream. So we're gonna talk about the Gamboa and the David Haney-Gamboa fights, and Luis Ortiz and Alexander Flores fights, and Villa Herkovic versus Rydell Booker. So I'm gonna start with the Gamboa and the Haney fight. So well, definitely not what I expected. Now, mind you, Devin Haney did put on a very good performance. He shut out. He pretty much pitched a shutout. On my card, I didn't really give Gamboa one round. Maybe you can argue you could give him maybe the fifth or maybe the sixth or seventh round, because they were a little bit closer than the rest of the rounds. But I do have to say this though. Gamboa took a lot of heavy shots in this fight last night against David Haney. No question about it. He did. And we all know Gamboa has a history of having a poor punch resistance. He has very terrible punch resistance. I'm not saying as bad as Terry Norris or maybe a Floyd Patterson or even Amir Khan, but his punch resistance is terrible. And he took Devin Haney's best shots in that fight, and he kept coming forward. And it seemed like he was hurt until later in the end of the fight. He was getting touched up a bit. He was getting bothered by some of those shots, but he was nowhere near being knocked out when he took those shots. So I was very shocked about that. Now, I think Devin Haney in this corner were pretty shocked about that too, because at the same time, if you go into the corner, I think at the end of the 10th round, maybe the end of the 9th round, Bill Haney, who's Devin's father and trainer, pretty much told his son to just box your way throughout the fight. That's it. Of course, Devin was trying to make an impression, make a statement by trying to knock out Gamboa in the 12th round. But the fact is that he couldn't do that. Now, a lot of people are going to question, okay, you couldn't knock out a HANEY-GAMBOA, who you really took his shots, took flush shots against David Haney, and yet he still kept coming forward and still put up a pretty tough fight, gave you a pretty good fight. So, uh, some people are going to question the legitimacy of Devin Haney's power, and yeah, I mean, I don't know. It is worth the question. That is David Haney's power legit at light heavy? I mean, not light heavyweight, at lightweight. Now, mind you, he can't knock anybody out, but you got to wonder, why couldn't he knock out HANEY-GAMBOA, who took flush shots? So that's very, very, very interesting right there. And of course, David Haney's going to have to answer for that in the coming days. But I do know is this though: David Haney's performances against Gamboa is not as good as Tank Davis' performances against Gamboa. Now, let's not get it twisted here. Tank Davis didn't really have a good performance against Gamboa either, even though he knocked him out in the 12th. Now, in that particular situation, Devin Haney was taking shots against Gamboa, and Gamboa was injured in that fight. And Gamboa took this guy to 12 rounds, and Tank Davis was in a much worse condition as far as cardio is concerned compared to Devin Haney. So yes, Tank stopped him, but at the end of the day, he could kind of admit that he didn't really have a good performance in that fight. Now, what I'm getting at is that those who praise Devin Haney and Tank Davis for their performances against Gamboa are the same people who criticize Terrence Crawford's performances against Gamboa. Mind you, there are stark differences there. Gamboa, who fought Terrence Crawford, which was 6 years ago, by the way, that version of Gamboa was in his prime. He was a lot more explosive. Yes, he had some legal issues with his promoter. That's why he was out of the ring for quite some time before the fight. But Gamboa was a favorite going in. People felt that Crawford was unproven going into that fight. They didn't give him. I mean, yes, he was a slight underdog, but they didn't really give him much of a shot at winning, given the fact that Gamboa's been in there with the best at 130 and 126 for the most part. He's a two-weight champion, and the fact that he's a gold medalist. This guy had pedigree and a very good amateur background. And Gamboa was winning that fight maybe for the first 3 or 4 rounds before Crawford figured him out. So the fact is that Crawford stopped him. He stopped him and put a beating on him, and Gamboa was not the same fighter ever since. So, with that said, those who criticize Terrence Crawford for that win over Gamboa because he was a solid man, mind you, Tank and Devin Haney are naturally bigger guys than Gamboa, and they had a tough time with him. They had a very difficult time with him. This is a Gamboa who's a shell of himself, who shot, not the fighter that he used to be. Clearly not made for 135 because he's, his argument, it's arguable that he doesn't belong in that weight class. I mean, the same argument that you used against Terrence Crawford. But the fact is that these two guys who are bigger than Gamboa naturally stronger than him, they had very difficult times with him. Yes, Tank took care of him in the 12th round, but Tank himself admitted that he didn't really have a good performance against Gamboa. Devin Haney, on the other hand, yeah, he pitched a shutout against Gamboa, but he wasn't even close to knocking him out. Not even close. And to me, Gamboa approached that fight as if he wasn't trying to win it. He was just there to survive, not really survive. He would just look at his body language and look at the shape he was in. He clearly wasn't in the shape that he was in his previous fights. And you have to you have to also include this fact. And Sergio Mora pointed this out during the middle of the Zone podcast, is that Gamboa, this is a guy who's been knocked down 11 times in the last 10 fights. It was surprising that David Haney wasn't even close to putting him down. Very surprising. So again, it's not always about knockouts and knockdowns, but what I'm getting is that you can argue that Devin Haney did not really put on a performance where he had to make a statement in the lightweight division. He didn't. I'm just being honest. He didn't. And I like Devin Haney. Again, you can't always put on a impressive performance, but it is what it is. He got the win. He moves forward. And no one can argue that he didn't deserve that win. He definitely did, but it was not a very climatic performance where you could put doubt into the lightweight division, because when Tank Davis look at that a performance like that, and when you have guys like Teofimo Lopez to look at performances like that, they're gonna say, "Oh, really? You couldn't even knock out a chinny guy. So what makes you think you can knock me out?" And we know that Teofimo Lopez has a way better chin than Gamboa, way better punch resistance, is much more explosive, so and much more bigger. So I don't know, man. If I were to match up Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez, I still would have favored Lopez anyway. But I don't know, man. That fight right there gave me a little bit more confidence that that Lopez is going to win that fight. I mean, it's still going to be a tough fight, but I think Lopez has a better chance of winning that fight based off that performance. But again, performances are rated by fight basis. So I mean, again, it does look kind of somewhat bad and questionable that Haney wasn't able to knock out a Jenny Gamboa. So that is telling. Let's see what we got here. So Ross Klotz says that Mr. Doc, shout out to Mr. Doc in the chat. Mala, Kurt Sugar, see you, man. So let me go ahead and get to the comments here. Ross Klotz says, I think that Crawford's wins I think Crawford wins, but I hope Brook wins. I'm kind of biased for Brook. And speaking of that, man, Carol Brook looked very motivated. He's in shape. And I don't know, man. Terrence Crawford may have a handful, but I'm not gonna say that Terrence Crawford is gonna lose that fight. I think he's definitely gonna win it. But Brook, man, he may be gained, man. He may put up a performance of his life. He seems much happier, and this is not no dig at Eddie Hearn, but it seems like he's much happier now that he's able to freelance a little bit and not be tied down to a promotion with Eddie Hearn, because it seems like him and Eddie Hearn's had friction for a while now before this whole story of them having this back and forth in recent days come out. So we'll see how Kel performs, but I can't be honest with you. I'm looking forward to that fight now that Kel looks motivated. He looks hungry. He seems like a rejuvenated man. So we'll see how that plays out. BG London, what's happening, man? He said that Oscar better be nice to Ryan Garcia, his golden boy now. Well, you know what? Oscar's got to be a little extra caution now with Ryan Garcia. I do agree with you there. So we'll see how that plays out. Mala says that Ross Clark funny. I'm going the other way. I hope Crawford wins, but then again, then he could get some better opponents. You know what? Speaking of Terrence Crawford, I'm not sure if there's any truth to this situation, but I heard that it's a possibility that he may part ways with Top Rank and may sign over to PBC. So if that's the case, then I have to admit that may have to be the best move for Terrence, because his career at welterweight, and I hate to say this, and I like Terrence Crawford. He's one of my favorite fighters in the world. His career at welterweight has not really is regressed. He hasn't got the best competition there. I mean, yes, you can give him the credit for the Jeff Horn win. You can give him credit for the Amir Khan win, but at the same time, Jeff Horn was not really a fighter of great caliber. I mean, let's be real. He Jeff Horn wasn't. Let's be real. He wasn't. Even though I like Jeff Horn, but he wasn't really a fighter of great caliber. And Amir Khan was way past his best. And then you have Shavalaskis, who, I mean, a very, very big, durable welterweight, but he hasn't really proven anything on world level. So we'll see. But other than that, then Jose Benavidez. I mean, obviously that win. I mean, yes, Terrence got the win, but I mean, Benavidez hasn't really proven himself either. So, I mean, his career welterweight, yes, he's a champion, but it's not really. It's regressed. So, Bob just can't give him the fights, and it'd be best that Terrence just leave and just go over to PBC if that's the case. So, unless Bob can somehow deliver those fights for him, but it doesn't look like he can. So let's see. Rocks89 says that Gamboa's gotta stop. Yeah, Gamboa's gotta stop fighting, man. I mean, his career is pretty much done at this point. I know the reason why he's fighting and they're keeping him around, because he's a good gatekeeper for up and coming fighters. He's a high level journeyman at this point, and his his days as a championship fighter is pretty much done. Let's be real, it is done, and he knows it himself. From a psychological standpoint, he knows that he can't win a championship given at his age, and he doesn't have his legs anymore. And mind you, Gamboa was a very athletic fighter. He relied on his athleticism to get through fights. And now that it's been deteriorated, he doesn't really have anything left. Yes, he has some bit of boxing skills, but he relied more on his athleticism and his speed, and that's deteriorated. Ross Klotz says that Haney is pillow fisted. Well, I don't know about that, but again, it has to be questionable given the fact that he couldn't knock out Gamboa, who's very chinny. So that is very questionable. Uh, Rossclaw says that Haney has the skills, but he doesn't have what casual fans want in order to sell the fight. Yeah, he's a very quiet guy, and his whole demeanor is very respected. It's a respectful demeanor. It doesn't come off as disrespectful like Anthony Joshua, for example. Anthony Joshua is a straightforward guy. He doesn't mean no disrespect. He's humble, and he's polite. That's what I see in Devin Haney. But for him to make out comments like, "Oh, don't let a white boy beat me," I mean, come on, man. I don't think that's the real Devin Haney. I mean, I know he said it, but I don't think that's his nature to say things like that. I think someone put him up to say that. That's just my take on it, just to sell himself. So it is what it is. Ross Glott, I was falling asleep during the Haney-Gamboa fight. Look, again, we got to admit that fight was very, very anticlimactic. It was no special effects in there. I mean, it was no special excitement in there, and we all expected Haney to get Gamboa out of there. And furthermore, we all expected Devin Haney to put up a better performance than Tank, and he just didn't. I mean, you can argue that he did a better job as far as win those rounds than Tank did, but Tank got him out of here. I mean, it's a debate. Let me take that back. It's an argument that you could say that Devin Haney's performance is better than Tank Davis, or you could also argue that Tank Davis' performance is better than Devin Haney. But the fact of the matter is that they both did not perform to the standards that we hope they did against Gamboa. We can also argue, and this is fact, that their performances are nowhere better than Terence Crawford's performances against Gamboa. And mind you, let me repeat, Terence Crawford fought a prime and undefeated Gamboa, who was a pound for pound fighter, and the fact that this is a man who was a favorite, Gamboa, a favorite to beat Crawford in that fight. He was a favorite to win that fight against Crawford. So it is what it is. What's up, Kurt Anderson? So he says here that Haney is a boxer, not a puncher, but that's his identity. Haney's still growing as a fighter. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. But yeah, I'll give you the link, Esau. So the fact is that Haney is again, the whole expectation is, given the fact that he's a 14-1 favorite to win that fight. The expectations was overwhelming that he was going to knock out Gamboa, given that the Gamboa has terrible punch resistance. Even Gamboa in his prime was getting put down and hurt by lesser fighters. I mean, seriously, there was times when I seen fights where he was getting put down by guys who didn't even pull back on their punches, and that was very, very questionable to me. And Devin Haney's hit this man with his best shots in that fight, very flush shots. And Gamboa didn't even get close to getting knocked down or hurt in those during those exchanges while taking those shots. So I don't know. Like I said, we have to see more for Devin Haney. We're not going to just really judge him and dismiss him based off this one fight, but it's just surprising to see that. That's just my thoughts on it. Yeah, D. I'm not. I'll send you a link, brother. Give me a minute. I will. Just give me a minute. I got to cook for a second. Yeah, I agree, Mala. Crawford does need to get moving, man, because he's not getting any younger at this point. He's not getting younger. Mr. Doc says that Haney might be able to may not be able to KO Lopez, but that doesn't mean he can't outbox and win. Yeah, I agree with that. That's my point. He can outbox Teofimo Lopez, but Teofimo Lopez is very, very quick and he has very fresh legs and he can cut off the ring pretty well. So that's gonna be a tough fight for both men. But I'm gonna favor Lopez to win it if they ever fight. Anthony Joshua's a nice guy, but he performs well in the ring, win or lose. Yeah, he does. But the thing about Anthony Joshua is that, sometimes he can be a little inconsistent. What I mean by that is that Anthony Joshua, when lead up to fights, we expect him to blow out certain guys. We expect him to win certain fights comfortably. But the fact is that sometimes Joshua can get a little reckless, and you don't know anytime he could get clipped in the head, he's going to go down. Now, Joshua doesn't really have the best of punch resistance in the world, but it's not the worst either. I will argue that Joshua has a better punch resistance than Gamboa because he's a heavyweight. But Joshua, when he's getting taken shots, man, he doesn't react very well with them. So that's the thing about Anthony Joshua that worries me, is that sometimes he can be a little inconsistent with his performances. Yeah, he gets the wins, but the more he the more he gets damaged in fights, the more vulnerable that he becomes. So that's my worry about Joshua. Shiz Biz, what's happening, man? Big up. LT, what's up? Ross Claus says the reason why they picked Gamboa was to knock him out, and he failed to deliver. Yeah, that's the whole point. No question about it. Jizbiz says Haney never got rocked by Gamboa. No, he never did. I'm not sure if you respond to someone else, but I never said that. If I did, I'm mistaken. What I meant is that Gamboa never got rocked by Haney. That's my whole point. And Gamboa took a lot of flush shots in last night against Evan Haney, and he didn't get close to getting knocked down. I mean, he was buzzed in the later rounds, but he wasn't like in danger of any sort. That's the thing. And that's very shocking because Gamboa has been put down by lesser fighters than Haney. And he's not able to take punches very well. That's what's been the story part of his career for the most part. Great fighter, but terrible punch resistance. And he was pretty much took David Haney to 12 rounds. And Shizbis says that, Haney's been out of the ring for over about a year, so that could be a factor. I mean, it is possible. I mean, he did have he is recovered from a shoulder injury, but at the end of the day, I mean, looking into the fight last night, he didn't look like he was bothered by that shoulder. So, shoulder surgery, I should say. It didn't look like he was bothered by the shoulder. So, but again, Gamboa has been put down by guys who pull back on punches, and he should have been hurt by shots like that normally. So it is questionable about. We have to question Devin Haney's power. He's not a puncher. He's not a puncher Kurt Sugar says, but at the same time, we do have to question the fact is that why couldn't you knock out a chinny guy like Gamboa? And you're a much bigger guy than he is, naturally, much more powerful than him. All right, babe. All right, sorry guys, 1 second. I will. Sorry guys, have a little conversation with my wife. I know, I know. All right, guys. So Ross Class says that Gamboa had a 7 reach disadvantage and he couldn't even reach Haney. Yeah, man. That is, yeah, you could tell Gamboa was bothered by the length and the reach of Haney. He was very bothered by that, and I mean, he was able to get to Haney and with few exchanges in the inside in the later rounds, but there weren't really it wasn't really the exchanges that type of exchanges that would give a fighter like Devin Hayes some bit of respect. So or gain respect from him, I should say. So yeah, fair point. All right, let's move on to the Luis Ortiz and the Alexander Flores fight. I mean, what can I say about this one? Luis Ortiz won the fight by a KO first round in 45 seconds. The KO, some people are questioning it, is somewhat bit bizarre. But if you look at the replay, Ortiz did land a body shot, a right hook to the rib of the body, and Flores did go down. Now, you could argue that that was the reason why he went down and didn't make the count. But usually, when you get hit by a body shot like that, you will crumble and you will try to hold that side, and you'll be grimacing in pain. And Flores didn't do that. I didn't see that from him. So some would argue that was he when he took that shot, he probably wasn't hurt from that shot. When he felt it, did he just take a dive and say, you know what? I don't want to deal with this guy power because he hits hard. That's possible. But yeah, the fact is he did take the shot. It could have hurt him, but I don't think it was enough damage to where he could continue. I think Flores could have continued, but he probably felt the power by that shot. And now before that shot, he felt the power from Luis Ortiz early on before that shot landed. So maybe when he took the shot, he kind of realized at that point that, yeah, you know what, I'm not going to go through this. And yeah, you can argue that he did take a dive, but in a sense that he did feel the power early on by Ortiz. And then as soon as Ortiz landed that right shot to the body, he found a way out by saying, you know what, I'm going to just lay down and say, I'm done. Hey, what's up, Angel Santos? What's happening, dog? Shout out to you, bro. Yeah. I've been, I haven't been on live for a while, but I'm gonna do this for a change. You know what I'm saying? Smoke says that. Yeah, my dad said he took a dive. Yeah, I mean, it was. I have to agree that was a dive, but in a sense where Flores felt the power early, and then as soon as he took that shot to the body, which was not really a very very full force of a body shot, he used that as an excuse just to get out of the fight, knowing that he didn't want to continue. He probably knew that there was no way he could win that fight. He knew from as soon as he felt those combinations early on by Ortiz, he's like, nah, man, I'm not gonna go through this. I'm gonna just collect my check and go home. As soon as he lands one good shot that looks like it's a telling shot, then I'm gonna just go down and beat it. And I'm gonna call it a night. So it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, it was one point in time that Al Heyman did have all the belts at the heavyweight division, but of course, people were wondering why those any vacation bouts didn't happen at heavyweight. Well, because obviously Andy Ruiz was tied up with a rematch with Joshua, and all he had to do was get past that rematch. Then we could have possibly got that unification with Wilder, but of course, Wilder was tied up with Fury, so yeah, it would be complicated in that situation. Ortiz is no longer the boogeyman. No, he's no longer the boogeyman. So he's very vulnerable at this point. I agree with Ross Clot. I was looking forward to the fight, but it was garbage. Yeah. Angel Santos says, I always listen to you what you say, Dan. I sit back and learn. I will spread the word. You heard? Saludos. Yeah, salute to you, brother, man. I appreciate that. So let me go ahead and bring D Style in the chat. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and post a link because I know he wants to get in on this. Because the one topic we're gonna talk about is why Donald Trump is afraid to leave the White House. Now, Roscoe says Fury could be that one guy that was next in line to be the PBC star. Yeah, it's possible if he didn't go to Top Rank. That would have been possible. Now, let me say this. Now, I'm hearing, speaking of Top Rank, I'm hearing that Top Rank is not doing very well as far as financially with that Fury contract. So, we'll see how that goes because I know Fury's contract is about to expire by Top Rank pretty soon, and who knows what's going to happen after that? He may be taken off. He may go somewhere else. We'll see. We'll see. All right, D Style, jump in. So, anyways, let's talk about this real quick. There's something I didn't put on the ticker here. Deontay Wilder situation. I know I had a chance to comment on this on other channels, live streams, but let me do this for you on my live stream with all you guys. Now, I'm going to say this. I'm a Deontay Wilder fan. There's no, uh, there's no, uh, there's no illusion to that fact. But as I've always said, I'm going to say this again, that I'm a fan of the sport before I'm a fan of any fighter. That's how I've always been. Now, what I'm about to say, it may piss a lot of people off, but at this point, I don't care because I'm my own man. I'm gonna speak my mind, and I'm not gonna blindly follow the fighter if I know if I know he's in the wrong. Now, Deontay Wilder recently came out, and this is about a few days ago or a week ago, on the eve of the Tank Davis and the Leo Santa Cruz fight. He came out and made a statement about the Tyson Fury situation, the loss. Okay, finally, after several months of like lots of months of silence after the loss against Fury, okay, he comes out, he makes this 2 minute, let's say 2 minute video attacking Tyson Fury, attacking Mark Breland, and attacking Kenny Bayless. Okay, he accuses Tyson Fury. Yeah, you can jump in, Doc. That's cool. Yeah. Okay. All right. Now he accuses Tyson Fury of a glove manipulation. Okay. Now, as far as AKA glove gate. Now, I'll say this once and I'll say it again. I've said this a while back. Now, I did find it a bit suspicious that Tyson Fury's glove on the front of his gloves looked like they had less padding. Okay, it did look like that, but it's also worth pointing out that those gloves had horsehairs in them. All right. Now, I've had issues with fighters wearing horsehair gloves over the years, but unfortunately, in some states, particularly in Nevada, those type of gloves are allowed. Now, I've had a problem with those type of gloves when Terrence Crawford used them against Jeff Horn. Okay, but the fact is, those gloves are allowed to be used, so there's nothing that we can say and do about that. Now, he says that Tyson Fury manipulated his gloves by sliding them down so he could punch on the wrist of his gloves, which he was able to ball up his fist. All right. Now, again, that's all debatable. But at the end of the day, the main course of this whole argument is that there was some glove manipulation on the padding. There's no evidence of that. All right. Now, pictures may tell one story, but if the commission's already investigated it, they've already confiscated the gloves, and they said that everything's all right, there was no irregularities, then we got to take it for what it is. Now, my problem with Deontay Wilder is that he went after Kenny Bayless. Now, he had a reason to do it. What's up, Smoke? I'll add you in. I'll go ahead and add you in a minute. Just give me a second, man. I'm going to cook. Now, the Kenny Bayless situation, he called him a crack, the crack of a barrel of a referee, or whatever the case may be. Now, the reason why behind that is because Kenny Bayless specifically told Wilder and warned him in the pre-instructions in the dressing room that there are no if you do any rabbit punches, I'm going to take action against you. Wilder understood the rules. But his problem was with Kenny Bayless is that he felt that Tyson Fury was continually rabbit punching him in the entire fight, and Kenny Bayless was not warning Fury for the rabbit punches. That's what Wilder was upset about, okay? But the one thing that really pissed me the fuck off about Wilder's statement in that video was about Mark Breland. He called him a fucking snake for throwing in the towel, this, that, and the third. Okay, that was a line that he crossed right there that he should never crossed. Okay, say what you want about Mark Breland, and I've even said this many times. Those two may have had problems leading up to the fight. Okay, that is within the norm of any relationship with the fighter and the trainer. I get that, but to throw him under the bus, given the fact that he, no argument about it, saved your career. You were done after that 7th round, bro. You had no chance of lasting that fight. Okay, for you to come out and say that, oh, I was a much more tougher situation against Luis Ortiz than against Tyson Fury. I have to call you out, Deontay. Nah, that's bullshit. Because first of all, against Luis Ortiz, and you're talking about the first fight against Luis Ortiz, you had 1 round to recover from the trouble you were in. You recovered pretty well. You had 6 rounds or 5 rounds to recover from the time that Tyson Fury had you in trouble. You were in no shape to make it a comeback. Mark Breland gave you 5 rounds to come back, and you were taking a much more worse beating. So you can't sit there and say that you were in much more trouble in the Luis Ortiz fight than you were in the Tyson Fury fight. That's delusional talk. I hate to say that as a Wilder fan. Okay. Now it's worth pointing out, leading up to the fight, man, you already had Deontay. This is me talking to you. This is tough love, bro, because I'm a fan of yours, but you got to hear it. From my understanding, you had bad habits before going into this fight. Not training properly, not doing road work, not doing proper sparring, not listening to constructive criticism, want to surround yourself to yes men. But that's not the way you approach things. All right. You have to take responsibility for the fact that you took your ass in that ring. You did take Tyson Fury seriously to one extent, and you got beat up. Plain and simple. You got to own up to the fact that you lost the fight. Now, if you do have evidence that Tyson Fury had manipulated his gloves, that he cheated, and he put a dent in your head as you claim. Hold on for a second, guys. I got a call.
I guess I'm the captain. Let's see.
Yeah, Smoke, you can go ahead and Doc. You guys can chop it up. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, I came in just because I saw you drop the link and I didn't want you out here by yourself. But now that I hear that you're talking about Wilder, I feel like if I actually chime in, it seems like I'm only talking about Wilder all the time. But hey Doc, what's up?
Hold up. You can chime in on it. I'm gonna make a quick. I'm gonna run down real quick. I gotta go. So I gotta make a quick stop. So I can come back, but you can chop about other things. But I'll come back.
Other things. All right, cool. So I will talk about other things. Because we have a new president, right, elect, and there's like a contested election. Or what do you want to talk about, Doc?
I'm good with that. Whatever, man. I'm not super political. The closest it sounds to me like it's a lot like the Bush Gore election.
Or
I mean, you know what I mean? Similar dynamics, if you know what I mean, in a very general sense.
Yeah,
because I believe that was contested as well, right?
I mean, is it contested? Is this contested?
Well, Trump's Trump's gonna kick and scream. You know what I mean?
It's kind of weird. I don't know. Like so before the I don't know. I think maybe there could be something to be said for that, for some similarities, but I think they're trying to draw parallels that I don't think really exist. But other than the fact that Trump don't want to lose, and after Gore conceded, he didn't want to lose after that, right?
Right.
And well, so they try to press the advantage to see if they can work, but I don't know.
I think that maybe the obvious difference, again, from my limited understanding, is if once Trump is out of office, he's got like a court case in New York hanging over his head, don't he?
Yeah, the state of New York is after on them cheeks. They
on like some tax and real estate
and fraud and any number of things, like just a ton of stuff. I think I'm not quite sure what he did to New York, but New York is they definitely want to bend his ear. They like to have a sit down.
Bend his ear.
Yeah. So then what we have is fights. Actually, are you a boxing fan? I see you got Muhammad Ali on there.
Yeah, I would consider myself a boxing fan.
All right.
Maybe just a little bit. I got to be honest, was not intrigued by the most recent set of fights in any way, shape, fashion, or form.
Do you remember the last set of fights you were interested in?
Yeah, like a week or two ago.
All right. So what did you think of those elites known as Usyk and Chisora?
Entertaining fight, very entertaining fight. I thought
You were entertained by that.
Yeah. Now, granted, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that's like a casual fan's casual. I'm not trying to use that as a pejorative term. You know what I mean? But not the your average fan's paradise or anything like that. But I found it interesting and intriguing.
What were you? What were you interested in the fight before going into it? Like, did you have questions that you saw answered, or what was it for you?
It went about how I expected. It went about that. It met my expectations. I expected Chisora's physicality to be a problem for Usyk early, and Usyk to have to figure it out. I expected Usyk's conditioning to probably tell the tale late. And I was Chisora actually kind of surprised me a little bit, if I remember right. Let me see here. If I remember right, I gave him rounds 10 and 11, and I thought Usyk squeaked out 12.
All right, so
but where
you gave Chisora 2 rounds?
No, I got okay. I'll go through it for you. Just not that this is super entertaining, but
No, I was just wondering. I give it.
I got rounds 1 and 2. I got Chisora. Round 3, I gave to Usyk. Round 4, I had even. And then where Usyk won the fight to me was rounds 5, 6, 7, and 8 and 9. I thought he won all those on the spin, and then Chisora came back 10 and 11, and then Usyk to me squeaked out round 12.
So you got
7-4.
You got Usyk 4. I mean, you got Chisora 4 rounds in a swing.
Yeah, like 7-4, 1 even to Usyk, and that was about what I expected. That was much. So and I understand some people had the expectation that Usyk was going to come out there and stop him or sweep 10 rounds to 2. I never had that expectation. Maybe that's because some people think more of Usyk than I do, or they think less of Chisora than I do.
Well, I mean, Usyk's a little bit of a short starter or a slow starter, right? So
yeah, I wasn't shocked.
You could see him losing some rounds, right? And 4 tops, and Chisora is a bigger guy. But what impressed me, what the impression that it left me, is that Usyk, the smaller man, and this is what I thought a while ago, right? And it just solidified it in that fight. And maybe it's confirmation bias, but it seems like Usyk is going to, as a smaller man, going to try to win fights fighting tall on the outside. And that's not really going to work, I don't think, against the top level heavyweights. I don't really see that as a boon. Like Chisora huffing and puffing and being 2 steps behind and swinging, taking these wild swings, hoping Usyk will still be there. I don't think that's going to be what he can expect from these guys moving forward, unless they match him real carefully. Right?
And he played the conditioning game with Chisora as well, I thought. Because, like I said, those middle rounds where Chisora really gassed. Let me see again. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right?
Yeah.
Chisora, if I remember correctly, there was 3 different times where he did 360s. I mean, he missed so badly, he completely spun around 360 degrees, Chisora did. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so Usyk, my point is Usyk was playing a conditioning game because Chisora comes out like a house of fire. That's, you know what I mean? He's out there to take your head off and put lots of pressure on you and be physical.
Yeah, and the book is also out a little bit on Chisora on that, or at least the last time he got knocked out, it seemed that it's because he got tired, right?
And because he was coming in, you know what I mean? Like I said, just like a bull in a china shop, as they say, and got caught with the counter hook by White. I don't
know if you know Coach Ali Bashir, but I saw him on a channel and he says he's got Dubois beating Usyk.
Interesting. Possible. It's possible. Dubois might be a little. He might be a little green. He might be a little green for that. I don't know. That's a good fight. That's a good fight. I like that.
Yeah. Well, you guys, sorry guys, I had to step away for a second. So now catching up. So catching up. Thanks for having you guys come in. So
no sweat, man.
Yeah, thanks, appreciate it. But as far as Chisora and Dubois, were you guys talking about the next step for Usyk or what?
We're just talking about the levels, right? Where do you think he is level wise? And just pointing out, I saw Bashir, Coach Ali Bashir, on somebody else's channel saying that he's got Dubois beating Usyk.
Yeah. I think real quick, Dan. I think if Usyk is serious about beating the top guys, the AJs and the Furies, etc. He in my opinion, he needs 2 more hard fights.
Yeah, he needs more. Yeah, he needs more
2 more.
Yeah, 2 more counter fights. Yeah.
Yep. He needs like a Joseph Parker, a Daniel Dubois would be fine. You know, or the winner of Dubois Joyce, if you will, something like that, right? And a Joseph Parker type guy. Because if he goes right now, he's still not quite ready, in my opinion. And I'm not even saying that if he gets those 2 fights and wins, he'll beat AJ Fury. I'm just saying to maximize his chances of beating those guys. If I'm making sense.
Yeah, fair enough. That does make sense. So we gotta see what Usyk does at this point, but he does need another. I mean, look, Chisora. I mean, yes, some people argue it was going to be a tough fight, but probably not at the scale as. I mean, he didn't really perform up to standards as we hoped for. So,
Dan, I'll go over my. Not that this is super entertaining, but I went over my scorecard with Smoke. I'll go over it with you. Okay. Because I think there's some intricacies we can get into. I got Chisora winning rounds 1 and 2. Round 3, Usyk. 4, I had even, and where Usyk won the fight was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Where because Chisora got tired, gassed out, and I mean, if I remember right, I counted 3 times but Chisora swung with right hands and spun 360 degrees. I mean, he was that, you know what I mean?
Right.
Gassing out of it. But then Chisora got a second win. I gave him 10 and 11, and then Usyk squeaked out 12. So I had 7-4-1 even. And the one thing I'll give Usyk, as a positive, was that I was surprised by how he was able to compete physically in the clinch. And at times he was even strong enough to push Chisora back or at least turn him and not get pinned down on the ropes. So that's a good sign, but he's not ready right now. If he fights AJ next, he's not winning, in my opinion. He needs at least 2 more hard fights, similar to Chisora. He needs to step his level up again a couple times. You get me? Like I said, like a Parker, Andy Ruiz, winner of Joyce Dubois, those kind of guys.
Right. I agree with that. Yeah, I mean, definitely good point. I can't argue against the scorecard. Yeah, I'm back D-style. I'm gonna give you the link. Hold up, brother. So yeah, I can't argue against that. But same time, I still have a draw. I've looked at that fight 3 times at least, and I'm still gonna stick by the draw. But as far as arguing for Chisora win, I think that's a little bit of a stretch. I think he earned enough for a draw, in my view. But again, Usyk win. Can't argue against that. But let's not pretend.
To your point, Dan. To your point, I had 4 even. Okay, so if we give him that, it's 7-5, and I've got 2 rounds here, round 6 and round 9, where I made a little asterisk, where I thought they were closer rounds. I thought Usyk won them, but they were closer rounds where I wouldn't be, angry if someone gets. So hey, a draw. I could have seen. I wouldn't have thought it like a monumental robbery if it was called a draw.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. It's not a robbery, and let's not pretend that Usyk put on a masterclass performance as some people make it out to be. He did not. That's not a masterclass. He struggled in the first 4 rounds of that fight, which you could argue you didn't give to Chisora because Usyk fought like he was surviving. He was getting manhandled. He was getting overmatched. He was getting pushed around in that ring in the first 4 rounds. So I didn't see any masterclass in the first 4, 5, 6 rounds of that fight until Usyk finally figured out Chisora and started to stand his ground against him, and then he started to have tough time with him in the later round. So, like I said, though, people are are entitled to their own interpretation of the fight, but let's not pretend that that Usyk dominated the fight. He did not dominate the fight. He did not outbox Chisora spectacularly. He did not. Even Usyk
Yeah,
himself can tell you that's not what happened. So,
yeah.
you know.
I would say that he because of his primarily because of his conditioning on my
Yeah,
card, he dominated a stretch of the fight in the middle
yeah, fair
mainly
enough.
because of conditioning. And
Right,
you know, but and also it depends on what people's expectations were coming into it, right?
right,
I didn't expect him to stop Chisora. I expected
right.
him to have a hard time. I definitely don't get me wrong. I heard the people too that were like, "Oh, he's going to school Chisora. Oh, he's going to win 10 rounds to 2." I heard some people even say he was going to stop Chisora, which
Right.
I thought all of that was ridiculous. And
Yeah.
again, that could be either or both. It could be those people thinking more of Usyk than I do, or them
Right.
people thinking less of Chisora than I do. What's up, D Style?
Yeah. What's up,
How's it
D
going,
Stop?
guys?
We're good,
Doing
man.
good.
But so fair enough. We'll see what Usyk does from this point. But let's move to the meat of the topic here before we get on to the Donald Trump thing because I really want to have this discussion.
Yes.
So yeah, I gotta finish up my Deontay Wilder epilogue, as you want to call it. I'm gonna end this out by saying this to Deontay. If he's listening, and he probably won't be, but if he are listening, man, and I know he listens to social media a lot, I will say this, Deontay, tough love. I'm still a fan of yours, brother, but you cannot go down this road of conspiracy talk. You cannot do that. If you had evidence, if you have medical science to back up your claims about what happened to you that fight, then you need to present that quietly. You don't do that publicly because now you're subjected yourself to ridicule. Me personally, I think you shouldn't even touch it on it. Period. You lost. It's not going to reverse the decision. You got to move on and get yourself back on your feet. Cut out the bad habits. Do some road work. Do some hardcore training, and then you get yourself more prepared for the third fight. That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say to Deontay, man. I hope he's listening. But I just think that going down this path is the wrong thing. And he hasn't been saying anything the last week or so. But other than that, that's all I gotta say, man. But let's get into the Donald Trump thing. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, let's talk about that. I'm gonna put this on my banner here. So the question is Donald Trump, why is he so afraid to leave the White House? So I'm gonna go
Can't leave.
down. Yeah, I want to go down the list here. I'm gonna start with you, D Star. Why do you think he's afraid to leave the White House? That given he's lost.
You know what? I think it's not one thing, guys. Like, you know what I mean? Everyone's looking for the one thing. I first want to point out that there's all in a nation with 300 million people, 50 states, you are going to find anecdotal examples of voter fraud on both sides. Okay, that's
Right,
number one. Okay, I just want to throw
right,
that out there. Like, oh man, they found like one ballot somewhere, and that's proof of this and that. Not necessarily. I just want to throw that out there. And to be honest with you, I think the Democrats should go just as hard on the other side. Like, go to North Carolina and start throwing accusations of voter fraud where you're losing. I just take it straight out of that playbook.
I
But
agree.
with that said, look, it's a combination of many things. I do believe Trump has a lot of issues outside of, there's New York. He also has a lot of loans out there,
Oh
okay,
yeah,
with Deutsche Bank and that he cannot default on. They could take everything he has from him. So very important to know it. But even if none of those were an issue, the niece of Donald Trump recently did an interview, and I'll send you a link on email or something, but I don't have it at the moment. But like, she did an interview saying this is just how he is. Like, for the first time in Donald Trump's life, he is confronted with the reality that he's lost, right? And
right,
he can't buy himself out of it. He can't sue somebody for it. And for those that don't know, the clear sign that Donald Trump has lost is when he sues. Okay.
yep,
They
exactly.
wouldn't give him the budget money he wanted for the wall. What did he do? He sued. And guess what? Even his appointed judges didn't go for him. Okay. Like, like, it's just this is what he does. That's his playbook. He's a sore loser by nature. However, I think this is what's going to happen. And it's a lot of people that are going to say, man, I really hope they don't do this. But this is exactly what's going to happen. And I honestly believe this, man. Look, they're going to let all this play out. Like if you notice, like they literally wait. Like it was over midday Tuesday, but they
Oh yeah.
just they didn't want to call it because they almost wanted to, like, they were scared of the MAGA people. They wanted to make it seem like, oh, we're being extra cautious. We're making sure, dude, like all the votes left to be counted were from blue districts, and even in the red districts. Okay, he was still closing in there because Democrats are heavily favored with the mail-in ballots, even in the red districts, meaning instead of 60-40, it was going to like 55-45 to Biden in those districts. But
Right.
that aside, okay. Um, for those that think it's rigged, I need you to explain to me why they would rig it and they would lose seats in the House and not gain any seats in the Senate. Like that's number one, okay? Please
Yeah.
take your time with that one. Okay, just take your time. But here's the thing. They're gonna sit down with him after all this is done, right? He's gonna lose all the cases. They're gonna throw him all out of court. He's gonna keep throwing temper tantrums, and they're gonna sit down with him and they're gonna have a real conversation with him, and they're gonna tell him, Donald, you will do a recession, not a recession speech, a concession speech, right? And we will make everything go away. All the crimes you got, everything you have in New York, all of it, we will make it all go away. Okay, we'll make sure you got the money to pay those loans you owe, right? And you will secure the future of your kids and your kids' kids and their grandchildren, because it's not going to end well for you if you don't concede. That's what's going to happen. Miraculously, he will not be. That's my prediction. He's going to end up doing a half-assed concession speech. Okay, like
Yeah.
I guess I have to concede type of speech, and then he will leave office. All right, and miraculously, all these crimes that they're investigating him for, they're just going to not be in the news cycle, and it's not going to be a thing anymore. That's what I believe is going to happen.
I definitely have to. I pretty much agree with that. Now, the thing is, too, there are some sources coming out of the White House that Trump is willing to accept the fact that he lost the race. He's willing to accept that now, only if he could sit down and negotiate his transition out of the White House, which to me, I was kind of scratching my head, figure out why is he trying to negotiate his transition out of the White House. But you hit the nail on the hand.
And,
If that's
and,
what it is. He's trying to find a way to staff off those investigations that are going to come out of his way from New York. That's
And
what
let
he's
me say
afraid of.
this,
Yeah,
because I got to go in a little bit. And by the way, shout out to Get the Smoke. Shout out to Doc. And I'm not sure what that is there,
by
but shout out
doctor,
to
by
Bye,
doctor. Yeah,
Doctor. Shout out to you too, bro. Okay, look, man, it's not that complicated what happened, but people are
yeah,
making it complicated because they want to make it complicated. Okay,
right.
like just use your heads for a moment. Okay, yes, Trump had a lead election night with 75% of the votes in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah,
Hillary had a lead in Florida with 75% or 80% of the votes in Florida.
right.
What are we going to call the final 25% that came in for Trump because he had an advantage in same day voting? Are we going to call that a conspiracy? Right? Um, Biden had a bigger lead with 75% of the votes in Arizona. Are we going to call it miraculous that Trump started to catch up? Right? Are we going to call that miraculous, like for real? Even this time, it's just that the difference is that Florida, right, counted the mail-in ballots as they came in throughout the weeks. So that's why Biden had a giant lead. Okay, if it was reversed, if Florida didn't start counting until the day of, you would have had Trump with a giant lead, and the networks not being able to call it for like 48 hours because they weren't sure how many of the mail-ins were going to come in for Biden. Okay, and he would have been closing in the gap, but it wouldn't have been enough, just like North Carolina, and they would have called it for Trump. All right, it's not that complicated. I find it funny that they're chanting "count the votes" in Arizona and they're chanting "stop the votes" in Pennsylvania. That is extremely funny. I also find it funny that, I mean, dude, if you're going to say that there's voter fraud, right?
Right.
It has to be reasonable. Like Giuliani, who by the way booked a press conference at the Four Seasons landscaping area instead of the Four Seasons hotel. That's why, look, dude, It's a
Yeah, right
dude.
next to an
You guys got
adult film store. He booked it
yeah,
right
dude.
next to
Like,
an
what are
adult
you
film store.
doing? Like, what are you doing? They had to put posters on some like old like garage door and shit. It looked like an abandoned building. It looked like a mafia fucking is having a meeting. It was hilarious. But look, man, um, registering to vote and you know, like for example, Giuliani alleged that people were sending hundreds of ballots, right? Like
Yeah,
one person could just send hundreds of ballots and vote.
right,
That's ridiculous. Okay?
right.
I'm sorry. That is absolutely ridiculous. It just is. All right. Secondly, if you had your ballot stolen, right? They can track your ballot. Like it's not like it's untraceable, right? And they can investigate that, and the person that did that can go to jail for a very, very long time. All right.
Right.
I mean, this is absolutely insane. Someone has to apply for a mail-in ballot. All right. You get a lot of shit over mail. Okay. You get your credit card bill over the mail. Okay. Of course, there's isolated issues where things can happen, but no one is going to steal a mail-in ballot. Okay. And take the risk of going to jail for years, okay, just for that one vote. It just isn't going to happen. All right. I'm sure there's isolated issues on both sides, which is why they actually found, you guys found that there was some discrepancies in Pennsylvania, and the Republicans complained about it, right? And they said, you know what, you're right. There is a discrepancy. They looked into it, and it turned out Biden got more votes, you know, at the end. Right? That just came out. Like it's like, oh, you're
Yeah.
right. There is a problem here. And they looked into it, and then Biden got more votes out of it.
Well, the
Right?
other discrepancy is that they were claiming, and this is what's funny, and part of this lawsuit, they were claiming they weren't allowed to have poll watchers into some of these precincts, right? This is what they were telling us in front of the camera. This is what Rudy
That's not true.
Giuliani. That's how I was getting to that. This is what they were telling us. But then when they went to the hearing, the judge specifically asked them directly, your complaint, part of your complaint says that you guys didn't have poll watchers. Is that true or false? They said, no, actually, that's a true. That's a typing error. We do have poll watchers there. And the judge like, well, what's the validity of your lawsuit then? And they said, well, we just feel that some of these mail-in ballots that are coming in should be counted, but you do understand they're post-dated, right? So with
Let me
that
tell
said,
you, Dan,
yeah, yeah,
the dog whistles are unbelievable. Okay.
yeah,
Everybody knows that. Let me tell you something. This is something real subtle, but something that they do. Okay. So first of all, there's windows, right?
right,
You literally cannot just barge in. Like a Joe Schmo can't just barge in to a polling place and be like, I need to see what the fuck's going on. That's not the way it works. And you're going to have a mob, okay? And you can't control a mob with fucking ballots. Okay, there's a process for this. And you're supposed to sign up ahead of time to be part of the process, okay? Both parties are allowed to be in there. They have a Republican poll watcher. They have a Democratic poll watcher. They have independent poll watchers. There's a Green Party poll watcher. They have all types of poll watchers, okay?
right.
And they're watching the whole thing. Like literally, like the way they count ballots, I would have to, by the way, it's not just the president. They're going through mayors. They're going through like a lot of things that Republicans are winning, okay?
Yeah.
It's just that they didn't vote for Trump. It's what people aren't getting through their heads. All right. Oh, they're going over it with Sharpie. Really? Like, so they're just going to go over the part where they voted. They're going to put in Sharpie just for Trump. Isn't it obvious that you'll see Sharpie on Biden? Right? What are they going to do? Use whiteout on the fucking Trump part? I mean, this is ridiculous. Okay. But like, I guess it would be like this. I would do the count. Okay. I'm the guy that does the count, right? I then
Right.
have to pass it, let's say, to Get the Smoke, who's a Democratic representative. He goes over it. And then Doc, he's a Republican representative. He goes over it.
Yes.
Okay. And then they pass it on to somebody else, like an independent poll watcher. He goes over it. And then they put it in a machine and they count it. It's not that complicated. Okay. It's not, it's almost impossible to just make shit up. And they have stupid complaints like, oh, they were letting them be more than 10 feet from the. Yeah.
Oh, D style. I gotta ask.
Sure.
You're going right where I was going to ask a question. It sounds to me like they're trying to manipulate the reality of the pandemic situation
Right.
and like social distancing rules and make it sound like, oh, they didn't let them get close enough to see. Not mentioning the fact that, we're trying to keep people from getting within a certain distance.
Yes. Well, yes, but
You're more politically adept
yeah,
than me.
but
So
10
can you
feet, bro, it's
get
not
into
even
that?
that far. You know what I mean?
Right.
You'll
Well,
see
that-
if
Right, that's what I'm trying to
somebody's
say,
doing
yeah.
something.
There's a couple of things that don't make right. So if you're talking about the mob, like using their head about the percentage of vote, right, that's left, you also need to use a calculator to see like if 89% of the vote, how many votes is that, and what is the lead, and what is the possibility of this guy's lead evaporating when they count the remaining vote. That's one thing.
That's how
The
they
second
decide to
thing,
call a state, right?
the second thing, when it comes to whether or not there was Republican poll watchers in there, or, right? Like only one party had poll watchers. These are Republican-led states, so the entire process is overseen by Republicans in Arizona and in Nevada and in Georgia, right? So it's not like the Democrats are controlling this process and are keeping Republicans out. So really what you're accusing is Republicans keeping other Republicans out.
Hey guys,
And
if it was true,
real quick, I lived in Nevada for about 10 years, so I can attest that while it's not your stereotypical Republican state, it's like the what do they say, fiscally conservative, socially more liberal, maybe, but it's still a Republican state traditionally. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. The people who are running the state's apparatuses, including like the overseeing the elections, these are Republicans.
let me tell you what's going on, guys. Basically, they want to make it really hard for people to vote because that favors Republicans. At the end of the day, that's what it. Even if it sets a precedent moving forward, okay, that they want to get rid of mail-in. Let's say a judge says, you know what, we got to count it, but you know what, moving forward, we just got to get rid of mail-in vote. That would be horrible, like for the Democratic Party, if they did that, right? So, like, we got to just keep that in mind that they want to set a precedent moving forward. Okay, they want to make it harder for people to vote than easier for them to vote. I mean, you would think we want a very easy system to vote and all that good stuff, right? The reason we had a lot of mail-in ballots this time is because of the pandemic, so it's a very unique situation. But as far as poll watchers, man, some of the things they're saying is ridiculous. Okay, so a mob of white people show up to in Detroit, where it's like 85% effort, right? And they're like, "Oh, you got to let us in, because we're going to be poll watchers." Like, who the fuck are you, dude? We don't know who the fuck you are. Like, what? You're talking about conspiracies, and we just let you in. How do we know you're not going to do something? Like, we don't even know what the fuck is going on here. Some of them were armed and shit. Like, what do you mean it's going to be let in? You know, like what? Like, what are you talking about? Why would the cops, be stopping these people from coming in when these are the people that support the cops? Just to think about how ridiculous this sounds. Okay, like the cops are stopping people from coming in that are like thin blue line supporters, right? And they think like the cops are in on it too, I guess. Like,
No, I literally heard them So I tried to stomach stop the Fox News, what they were talking about. It's Lindsey Graham, and it's Fox News Sunday. So Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz talk about 6 dead guys that voted, and so now there needs to be an inquiry because if 6 guys, dudes losing by like 80,000 votes.
yeah, you know
Right?
what you do? You just subtract the 8. You know what? Let's give those 8 to Trump.
All right, then they're talking about software and not like all of this stuff that. All right, if you want to reform elections, if you want to reform elections, fine, but that's not even what they're asking for. They're not asking for election reform. They just want an inquiry into the states that they lost. That's it.
You know what Democrats need to get?
This is only about losing an election and not wanting to lose an election. But to answer if I could just answer the question, why is Donald Trump afraid to leave the White House? I think he is afraid to leave the White House. I think that he likes the attention of being the center of attention, and he will be relegated. I think his Twitter account is about to get shut down in not too long, right? I think he's about to be persona non grata. right? And I don't think that he wants to be. I don't think he wants to go back to the shadows. I think he likes the spotlight. I think those lawsuits. Nobody is interested in his concession to the point where they're going to absolve him of his crimes. I just don't see that. But he might try to get it, though. I'm not saying that Trump is above trying to negotiate his way out. I just don't think it's a winning strategy.
Let me say this, because I got to go really quick, but let me just say this.
Yeah.
One of the most ironic shit I've ever seen was Trump supporters with their MAGA hats, a thin blue line flag cape, okay, dancing to Rage Against the Machine, okay, to a song that says some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses. It's one of the most epic, and it just tells you everything about how they're just completely detached from reality. You are welcome. I'm out of here, guys. Peace.
Wait,
peace out,
D-Style, if you can. Are you there?
Yep.
Can you? How is this? There seems to be superficial similarities to this and the Gore Bush thing with the hanging chads.
You know what? Let me comment on that one. I was going to get to that one too.
Take it. I do gotta go though. So peace
out, peace out, D-Style. I'll take this one, but let me say this. That right there, I know I've seen people trying to make this election comparisons to that one.
Let me be clear, Dan. Before you go, let me be clear. Yeah. The only reason I bring that up is like, okay, if that happened, isn't what's good for the goose good for the gander?
Good point, but the fact is that Bush v. Gore, that particular election, which is 20 years ago to this day,
2000,
that particular 2000, that election came down to only one state,
Florida,
which is Florida.
Yeah,
that particular state, it was very close. After the initial count, Bush won it by only 500 plus votes. That was it. And then it initiated an automatic recount because it was less than 1%. What's up, champ? So, champ Ross. So, what happened was during the process of the recount, it was discovered that there was some fraud that occurred. And what happened was that Catherine Harris, who was the Secretary of the State at the time for the state of Florida, and along with Jeb Bush, who was the Republican governor, who was the brother of George Bush, who was running for president, they disenfranchised and disregarded the black votes coming out of Miami-Dade County, which is heavily Democratic. They did not count those votes in, right? So in that particular situation, what happened was the recount took about a month or two or something like that.
It took a long time. What I'm getting at is, look, if there was a little bit of like D-Style kind of alluded to, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it seemed like what he was saying, look, there's always going to be a little bit of fuckery, right?
Right.
There was a little bit there. There might have been a little bit here, but the bottom line is you lost. Take your fucking L.
Yeah.
Just like Gore had to take his L, right? It's the way it goes. It's the way it goes in politics.
Here's the thing. Republicans haven't won the popular vote in fucking my life. I can't remember. I think maybe
years.
Bush daddy, right? 92. That's not even 92. That's 88.
Or actually, that's 88. No. Well, actually, 2004. No. It was 2004. He beat Kerry in the popular vote, but only by a small
yeah. You're right.
Yeah, he beat Kerry in the popular vote. Yeah. But that was in the middle of a wartime, so you can expect the Republicans to win
that was the Bin Laden election. Bin Laden helped George W. Bush get reelected.
Right, pretty much. And let's be honest.
So we have one election where they actually won the popular vote in what is that 30 years almost.
Well,
that is the problem with their whole deal. Actually, that is more than 30 years. It's 32 years. So yeah, they need to actually stop with these sort of procedural things and dirty tricks in order to hold on to power and actually figure out a winning platform and the way to grow their actual their party.
Smoke. Let me piggyback what you're saying there. In my lifetime, that where I was really kind of aware of what's going on, from starting all the way back to Nixon, every single president we've had has been highly divisive and controversial, in my opinion.
Right.
Whether it not always in the same way, not always for the same reason, right? I mean, Clinton, it was for, we all know why, right? Obama, we all know why it was divisive, right? We don't have to get into it. The Bushes, Reagan, right? Trickle down economics. We all know that every one of them has been divisive.
Right. They all have been, but the fact is that, you know, the whole point is that Trump, you know, like I said, Donald is just, you know, he's in a situation that I have to point out again, I think he's trying to negotiate his transition out of the White House. Again, that's not how the way it goes here. When January 20th hits, you got to go, bro. You're trespassing on government property at that point. You're no longer power. That's it. You got to go. All right. Now, again, he's probably looking for something, given the fact that this was, I'm afraid of, somebody brought this up on one of their channels, that he has access to government secrets. He knows what's going on. So, I mean, I don't know if that's what he's trying to negotiate so that way he can stem off those federal investigations about his financial crimes. I'm not sure he's trying to use that as leverage, but look, even if he gets a presidential pardon from Biden, that's probably what he's trying to angle for after he leave the White House, right? Even if he gets it, all right, and that be shame on Joe Biden for doing it. If he gets a presidential pardon, that does not shield him from the state crimes that he'll have to face. That would be the governor of New York that can issue pardons in that situation. That's Andrew Cuomo. You know, Cuomo is not going to do it. He will never give that man a pardon. Now, I see
now
it.
Dan, is there any? Do you think it's because I've heard a lot of people say this, but I don't know how much to put into it. I've heard a lot of people say that they think he's going to end up living in Russia after this.
Yeah, that's a high probability. That's a high probability because you know the Russia and the United States does not have an extradition treaty amongst each other. So look at Edward Snowden. That's why he was able to, yeah. That's how he was able to flee to Russia. Yeah.
Yeah, Trump and Snowden sitting in a tree, right? Sitting in the Kremlin. I don't. Anyway, I think he's not going to go anywhere. I think he will probably beat the charges. All that stuff is porn, but the state of New York, I don't think really has the horses. And then a sitting president being in exile overseas to escape state prosecution. I don't know. It seems far-fetched to me.
It's probably not something that is desirous for the government at large. Yeah,
especially what Dan was just saying about how all ex-presidents they still get security briefings after they leave the office so they can give the new president some advice. Although I doubt Joe Biden is going to be calling Trump for advice.
No,
but
he's not going to do that.
Whatever. It's just the sort of thing about the continuity of government, right?
Right. I mean, that's a good point, though. But the thing is, too, I think what's going to happen is that two scenarios. One, as you say, Smoke, even if he gets charged by the state of New York, all right, as the AG, the state attorney general has pointed out, she will make it a point that she's going to go after him and his family for bank fraud, wire fraud, and other financial crimes. She's going to go after them, all right? But the fact is, there's going to be some point of settlement which pretty much keeps them out of jail. That's probably what's going to happen. Or if she budges and say, you know what, no deal, you're going to have to do some time for your crimes. You got to pay for the crime, pay for what you've done. So what I see it is that Trump may get the treatment like Martha Stewart got when she got busted for what's called for securities fraud. Okay. Yes, she had to do some time in jail, but she only did 14 days in jail, and then she was released on house arrest, and then later
actually, they hit her with obstruction of justice because she lied to the FBI. It wasn't actually for the securities fraud.
Well, and let's be clear, these aren't your regular prisons that these people go to, right? For these
exactly,
they go to country clubs where they got a little bracelet around their ankle. All right, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They're not going to the hardcore prisons that you see in the movies or any shit like that. They're not.
Yeah, I mean, all of his fraud, Trump University, his fraud charities, the fraud that is Donald Trump, that everybody knows is a fraud. I just don't think that is going to be. I think the ex-president should have enough juice in order to get around whatever the hell this court has to offer. That's really what it is. It's not even about a negotiated settlement. I just think he beats the case.
What about the tax evasion and the situation?
Yeah, I don't think the IRS is, but that's a federal crime, tax evasion. The state of New York, unless they're saying it's state taxes that he's evaded. But I still think that'll probably be a fine. they'll probably reduce it and negotiate it to like whatever, a misdemeanor and fine.
Yeah, you know, that's a good point.
Make him pay a bunch of money. Make him pay a bunch of money.
And that, and you know what? To your point, to you guys' point there, I think that's what's going to happen. That's another thing he's afraid of because he doesn't have the money to pay it. That's $100 million that he owes. Probably a little bit more than that. And he doesn't have the money to do it. The only way he can pay it back is that he has to agree.
He's been bankrupt twice. I don't think being bankrupt is like the thing that keeps Trump up at night.
No.
Right.
I think like a lot of people have alluded to, a lot of this is just psychological. He's not used to losing. He's not a good loser. He's not a gracious loser.
Right.
He's gonna leave. He's gonna leave. He's gonna talk about how much damage he's gonna do unless you do this, unless you do that. He's gonna bluster and all that stuff. And at the end of the day, he's gonna get evicted like any other person once it's no longer possession of the property that they're inhabiting, right?
And he'll go on a Twitter rampage, and like Dan said, he'll probably end up getting blocked on Twitter.
Well, Twitter's made it clear that they're going to shut him down after his term is done. They're going to shut his accounts down. Now, I'm not sure about YouTube or Facebook, but they may shut him down too. But Twitter's made it clear they're going to shut him down. But I will say this though, is that Shizbit says it's the big bank takeover. I mean, I'm not sure about that because the big banks has already got what they want since Trump has been in office.
That's not even that's a whole.
You got it mixed up. This is not 1939. The takeover been happened.
That's a whole separate. That's a whole set. Don't even like that. Now that was something that I was intrigued by, was the whole bank bailout thing.
Oh yeah,
right. But that's a whole separate. You know what I mean? Conversation.
Oh yeah, the central bank's role in this pandemic and propping up the world economy.
No. Yeah. I'm talking about. This was like 4 or 5, 6 years ago when they spent all those trillions of dollars to bail the banks out.
Yeah. Hey, so DGU in the chat says, who's the worst loser, Wilder or Trump? Well, all I gotta say is that, I mean, they're both taking losses very hard and they can't handle it. Let me just be honest, they both are. I hate to say it. I mean, Wilder, he's my guy, but you know, he's got it. Like I said, though, tough love. You're not taking the loss very well, and you got to get back on your feet. You got to forget about what happened in February. I'm not saying forget about it, but you got to move on and focus on the rematch.
Oh, you guys pulled me out of retirement. I was not trying to defend Wilder right now, but I'm now got to wade into it. Wilder's video was aimed at getting a fight, right?
Well,
it was not aimed. It was not aimed at like all the stuff that people are now trying to focus on about, like whether or not he was loyal to Mark Breland or whether they should stop a fight or whether there's egg weights or there's proof or anything. The bottom line was Tyson Fury is trying to get out of the trilogy. So Wilder went to the airwaves to try to get the trilogy. Period. Right. He's trying to shame Tyson Fury and he shouldn't be in a position to have to shame Tyson Fury and to get in the trilogy, but that's where he is. It's not about being a sore loser. It's about trying to get a fight.
I think I got
hold up, Doc. Okay, go ahead. I was going to say real quickly. That part I agree with Smoke, and I've said this too. I think this is a strategy to get back into the ring for the third time. But my only argument is that you shouldn't go. I think there's ways to go about it. I didn't think he should have gone that route of the conspiracy theories. That's my thing. But go ahead, Doc.
Here's what I think. I think that both sides of the camp, both sides of the promoter wise, Bob Arum and Al Heyman will say, just to make it simple, right?
Right.
I think both sides of them feel like they need to wait until they can have a full crowd.
Yeah,
right?
I think that's the whole point. Yeah, just to build the fight.
I think my bet. This is my theory. Emphasis for everybody listening. My theory is that this is basically pro wrestling shit talk to keep the fight in people's consciousness, right?
Yeah,
and try to keep things afloat until they can hopefully get full crowds back. You know what I mean? Because in the social media era, people don't remember. They're not.
Hey, Doc, get feedback. Yeah, you got people. Who's that? It ain't me either. Okay, it sounds okay now. Go ahead.
Okay, so in the social media era, people don't pay attention for that long, right? Yeah. So I mean, and it's looking like it could be up to a year.
Yeah,
before we get full crowds. But trust me, Bob Arum doesn't like step over dollar bills. All right, in the street. He wants every penny he can get his hands on. He's not if he can get a trilogy fight with a full crowd. Yeah, he's going to hold it out till then. But they got to find a way to make it intriguing or keep it intriguing.
Yeah, and the thing too, part of me says that too, but part of me doesn't like the fact that he had to bring in the conspiracy talk. But I thought that's just not the way to go. That's just me. I just felt there was other ways he could have approached this rather than bringing the conspiracy talk. But again, you could, like Champ Ross or like you say, Mr. Doc, or in Smoke, probably there is a purpose behind why he brought up the conspiracy talk, just to build the fight, build the rematch.
Yeah.
So I mean, but I just didn't like it. I'm just well, I'm hearing.
We got an echo here.
Yeah, I'm hearing echo. Hello. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. I'm still hearing an echo. Where's that coming from? Jesus Christ. All right. Okay, that's better.
I was muted, so it ain't me.
That ain't me either. Okay. So yes. So look, like Champ Ross says that look, they've already said that they're going to wait till fans come out in 2021. So Fury's going to take it in a fight until then. So what's the problem? Well, I think what you know what? I think the problem is that there's a lot of people who believe that Fury is not going to fight Fury. I mean, not going to fight Wilder. He doesn't have to owe Wilder anything. So they're going to run with that line. And that's what's pissing off a lot of Wilder fans because, wait a minute, you agreed to the third fight. It's not Deontay Wilder's fault that the network decided to call it off on December 19th. So that's the reason why people are upset and are very worried about this. And given the fact that Wilder hasn't said anything for months now, that's where all the speculation is coming in. So DGO says that, look, the networks didn't see a big profit last time. Why would they nix the rematch? That's why they nixed the rematch. No, that's not it. They nixed the rematch because they didn't want the fight to be to compromise the sporting events that's going to happen December 19th with the college football championship games, the NBA that's going to roll out pretty soon, and and all the other championship sports events that's going to happen around that time. So they didn't want the boxing event to compromise that date. So that's what it was.
Say
well,
guys.
and they want
Can I chime in for a second?
They want that full crowd. Oh yeah. Go ahead, Doctor.
Yeah. Well, hold on, Fight Doctor. Before you chime in, I'm gonna say this. Shizbit says that look, Bob Branker is saying the contract expired. Well, you know what? That area is big gray there, Shizbit, because not Frank Warren, Bob Arum did not specify that 3 months ago. And shout out to Main Man. He made a video about this. When the fight first got delayed, Bob Arum specifically said that this contract allows postponements with the S. Postponements if they see fit. We need to postpone the fights if it's necessary. It never mentioned anything about expiration date. I think the reason why they roll with this expiration line just to get people propped up to get more interested in the third fight. That's just me. That's just my view on it. But go ahead and fight, Doctor.
All right. So are you guys still hearing an echo?
No, I'm not hearing an echo. You're good. You're clear.
Okay. Yeah, I had to adjust my audio settings, so that was on my end. So my bad on that, gentlemen.
Oh, it's all good, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So just back to the whole, noise is coming out of the Wilder camp, and in terms of the reason behind we're hearing this noise, I think part of it is maybe a little bit of the WWE factor, as far as keeping a certain narrative going and keeping a certain amount of interest within the boxing community. However, I just think that the approach Wilder's camp is taking to this marketing ploy, if you want to call it that, it's just sort of, very low class, especially when you're going to throw your trainer under the bus in the manner and fashion which you did by accusing Mark Breland of having spiked your water. Now, I mean, it was cool when, you were blaming the suit, you were, in fact, I think it's kind of low class to accuse Tyson Fury of having cheated without a shred of evidence. It's just low class. And I think it kind of speaks to, look, boxing is a dirty sport, always has been. But, even if Tyson Fury did cheat, if you don't have any proof, then why even bring it up? It's just low class, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree with that fact, Doctor. That's my hope. But if he does have proof, why announce that publicly? Why don't you handle that privately and take that to the INSAC? Why don't you address that with them and state your case and say, hey, look, I got medical advice that can back up my theories. This is what they presented, and this is what they found pertaining to my injuries of that fight. You could have said
Right.
that
So
privately,
that's the thing.
not
Right.
publicly. Not
So
publicly. Go ahead.
it seems like that is actually his evidence. Like, I think that there's a distinction between evidence and proof, right? I think he has the evidence and he draws his conclusions and it's his beliefs. But fans have their own ideas about what happened, right? And they have their own ideas about how Wilder should approach it. But I think what the issue is, the actual catalyst for all of this is that Tyson Fury is trying to fight somebody else. And Deontay Wilder is saying, I will fight you on that day, regardless of the networks. So all of these excuses, all of this franchise champ, all of this lockdown, all this stuff, it sounds like from Deontay Wilder is that they are not trying to actually fight him again. And so he is trying to get a fight. He, regardless of why he feels like he didn't feel like himself, and what we think about his reasoning for why he felt like he didn't feel like himself, right? And also what conclusions he's drawing from what his doctor apparently told him, right? Whatever the hell it is that is going on, all of that that's fodder for the controversy. But really the catalyst to this whole thing is he is trying to fight Tyson Fury, and it does not appear that Tyson Fury is trying to fight him.
Okay, I got you. Now, here's my only question about this, right? And it's an honest question. I'm not trying to be funny, any shit like that. If you really believe, if you're Deontay Wilder, right, and you honestly believe Tyson Fury cheated on some Luis Resto shit, right? Some Panama Lewis shit. If you really think he cheated, why in the world would you want to put more money in Tyson Fury's pockets? Because that's what you're doing if you fight him again.
It's not like you're going to fight him for free, right?
I'm saying, but Tyson Fury is going to get paid if you fight him again. Let me go one step further. If what Deontay Wilder says is true, I want Tyson Fury out the sport. I don't want him to get paid again.
I don't know why. Listen, I think he could have been thrown out of the sport for the Vladimir Klitschko. He could have been thrown out of the sport years ago, right? Like I got all of that. Right.
Yeah.
Like the idea that all of a sudden Tyson Fury is some character whose character's been besmirched. Listen, I can get behind the Mark Breland thing. I can get behind the Mark Breland. Hey, you know what? You don't know who spiked your water. You shouldn't throw it. You shouldn't actually, even if you think your water was spiked, you don't have proof, or do you have evidence that your water was spiked? All you're doing is feeling weird and drinking water. Right. Whatever. Those are your conclusions. Those are your crazy conclusions. How you got to Mark Breland is how you got to Mark Breland. But let's not lump Mark Breland in with Tyson Fury.
No.
Let's not lump in the way that Wilder said he felt with the actual physical evidence that he's shown photos of a dent in his head and what a doctor said about those photos.
No. All I'm saying, and like I said, it's an honest question. Why would you want to put money in Tyson Fury's pocket if you really feel he cheated?
I can answer that question.
You go ahead, Fire Doctor.
Because he wants payback. It's just that simple. And I can relate. Look, if I feel that somebody has stole something from me, then what I'm thinking is I want to take it back, and then maybe I might want to steal something from you in return. Okay, just so now you know how it feels. So yeah, I think it's payback. I mean, I don't think that.
But fight doctor. But we're not talking about a run of the mill interpersonal conflict. We're talking about an elite sport. You know what I mean? Elite level, rather, sporting bone of contention.
No, but you're trying to. Okay, but you want Wilder to behave the way that you behave, right? But that's really what this is about.
No.
That's what I'm saying. But at a certain point, you have to divorce yourself from what you think is more likely than not, and just say that's what this guy is doing, right? So if that guy wants to get into the ring and get his get back and get paid while he does it, why is that unreasonable or unfathomable just because of the gravity of the accusation?
because you can take him to court, get paid, nothing's going to go into Tyson Fury's pocket. It'll come out of Tyson Fury's pocket, and you'll get that cheating piece of shit out of the sport. And again,
he's not going to get Tyson Fury.
Smoke. Let Mr. Doc finish. Go ahead, Mr. Doc. Go ahead.
All I wanted to say, I'm dead serious when I say, if what Wilder says is true, I want Tyson Fury out of the sport, and I don't want him getting paid another dime.
Just because something is true doesn't mean that you have the horses to prove it in court, right? And then also a civil suit, which is what it would be, where it's more likely than not, is not going to get Tyson Fury out of the sport. So really, all you're talking about is suing to get some money out of Tyson Fury. But you're still not going to get the get back. All you're going to get is some cash. Let me just finish. You'll probably make more money fighting him than you will suing him, and you can also whoop his ass.
Fair point.
Now see what you just said there. That makes sense to me. At least I can make sense of that. Fair enough.
Wait, can I chime in for a second?
For sure.
Listen, I actually agree with you that if Tyson Fury actually did fight with loaded gloves, I want his ass out of the sport too. Seriously, because that's like essentially attempt murder. Fighting with loaded gloves, you're trying to kill somebody. Okay? Seriously. And there should be no room for any of that type of activity, that type of behavior in the sport. And not only should you be out of the sport, you should be brought up on charges for attempt murder, and you should see the inside of a jail cell for some years if it's true that Tyson Fury fought with loaded gloves. But now, if I'm Deontay Wilder, right, I have to live with the optics of the world having seen me beaten from pillar to post in our last fight, knowing that you cheated. So how do I live with that as a man if Tyson Fury is kicked out of the sport? No, I want Tyson Fury, if I'm Deontay Wilder, knowing that this man cheated, I want his ass back in the ring so I can knock him the fuck out. That's what I want if I'm Deontay Wilder. That's what I would want. Never mind the man getting paid. Never mind all that. No. Get this man back in the ring. This time, let's make sure it's a fair fight because I want to knock you out. That's how I'm thinking as Deontay Wilder. But me as a boxing fan, Mr. Doc, I agree with everything that you said. I want Tyson Fury out of the sport if indeed, look, we know that the man is not beyond cheating. We know this. So is it conceivable that the man fought with loaded gloves? Sure. I don't think it's probable, but it is possible. You know, if there's enough evidence to push the probability where it's more probable that it did as opposed to more probable than it didn't, then I would be willing to entertain that, you know. But we do know that Tyson Fury is not above cheating, so anything is possible. But yeah, I agree. If the man did indeed fight with loaded gloves, he should be out of the sport, and he should see the inside of a jail cell.
I'd just like to point out that guys have been found with loaded gloves in the loaded wraps, and it not only didn't get him out of the sport, it didn't even get him out of that fight.
You know what? Fair enough. Margarito, it was his trainer that got banned, wasn't it? Now that you mentioned that.
Well, they both got banned his trainer got banned, I think, indefinitely.
His trainer got banned for forever, but Margarito was allowed to come back, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was allowed to fight after 1 year after his suspension, and we saw he wasn't effective right after that suspension. So he was never effective. I don't think he's recorded a knockout after that situation. So, look, like I said, though, I wish he could have held that privately rather than publicly. Maybe it is a ploy to sell the third fight. It's possible, but I just felt that he should have. There was another way he could have handled that. That's just my situation on it, and I just feel that maybe he should just move on from that and get retribution in the third fight, because at the end of the day, it does not change the result in the second fight. Just like how the Miguel Cotto and Margarito situation in the first fight, that situation did not change the result. Even though it was not proven that he was able to load his gloves in that fight, he could have possibly did based off circumstantial evidence. But at the same time, Margarito was not persecuted for that. Only in the Mosley fight he was. But other than that, Miguel Cotto realized it. Yes, he was very upset about it, but he got retribution in the rematch and beat up on Margarito. Effectively, pretty much ended his career as a world level fighter. So yeah, I think Wilder needs to. I wish he could have kind of taken the Miguel Cotto approach a little bit. That's just my take.
True. Now here and here would be the flip side of it, right? The flip side would be, why isn't Tyson Fury taking Wilder to court for slander?
Yeah, that's a good question. Why hasn't he done that yet?
See, the fact that neither, and that's why I fall into I think this is kind of like a pro wrestling angle type thing.
Yeah,
that's my theory, is because neither one of them is taking any real serious seeming action in that regard. You know what I mean?
Or
right.
he hasn't really said anything other than what he believes happened, right? That's it. Like, there's nothing actionable there. Right. Really, the issue is, if Tyson Fury is so damn good, why is he trying to fight Ajit Caballero? And if they beat Wilder so easily, why is he not trying to do it again and get paid tens of millions of dollars to do it again?
Well, you know what? This thing about that. Speaking of Ajit Caballero, they actually gave a 24-hour deadline for Caballero to sign the contract, but there's no word of that yet. That was what, 5 days ago, 6-7 days ago. What's going on with that?
I have no idea about that. I'll tell you what. You guys might think I'm crazy. Let me tell you, if Tyson Fury pulls his fighting down to the competition type shit and isn't up for it, Caballero could be a banana peel.
Yeah.
He's a tricky, slick motherfucker. I'm just saying.
It's possible he may give him a tough fight, but to Smoke's point, that look, Tyson Fury came unscathed in the Wilder rematch, right? So he came unscathed in the Wilder rematch. Why is he fighting a guy who's ranked 15th by the WBC?
because that's the lowest ranked guy he's allowed to fight. We all know that's what he's doing.
Right, and yet it's yet been announced yet. We don't know if he's going to fight Caballero, because Caballero was given a 24-hour deadline, and there's no signs of him signing the contract. Maybe he did, but they're waiting to announce it at the right time. We don't know. So I'm just a little perplexed.
Yeah, if I'm Wilder, I'm telling him, you put everything in your gloves. You're a damn cheat, and you hired my boy and all of that to win, and now you're trying to slither out the back door because you know the world is watching and you can't do it again. So make an excuse about why you can't do it again.
Yeah, you know what? To Champ Ross's point, and shout out to Champ. Champ Ross said, you know what? They're probably doing this because they know. I think they are going to do the third fight. I honestly believe that too. I said this a while back. I think they're going to do the third fight. But given the magnitude and the money they have to pay out the fire purses and stuff, and the money they can make, mind you, they broke the record at the gate for a heavyweight fight in the second fight. That is an actual fact. That happened. So they don't want to lose any chance of that revenue in this particular situation, especially in the middle of a pandemic. So I think what they're doing is they're waiting on to get the green light to have a big crowd again. They're waiting on that. So they're anticipating next year, early next year, probably February. The same year that Wilder got beat badly. So, I mean, the same month and year this year that he got beat badly. So, I mean, Deontay really needs to he's up against the wall, man. And people calling him crazy, calling him delusional, nutcase, idiotic. I know all the names in the book, but he does. I mean, it's good for him in one instance that he's got the back against the wall. He's got to prove everyone wrong. But he could come through this rematch, he could be the victor. So I'm still favorite Tyson Fury to win the fight. So I mean, glove controversy or not, I still think he's a better fighter of the two. But we'll see. We'll see how this goes. All right, guys.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta say, man, like if Tyson Fury wasn't Tyson Fury, I'd find it easier to root for him because I actually do appreciate his boxing style a lot more than I can appreciate Wilder's, right? But Wilder keeps coming. He keeps showing me enough of how I would behave, right? If I was in these fucked up circumstances. Like, if it is actually true, right? And let's say it's not Kabuki. Let's say it's not WWE. Right. Let's say that those guys are actually trying to slip off into the night with the belt and not give him his get back. Right. Then it's just messed up.
Right. Yeah, and agree. They have a two-way rematch clause, and Fury's got to honor it. I know they want to go with this whole contract expiration date, but again, I don't see how that can hold up in court legally, given the fact that Wilder's not the one who asked to delay the fight. It was the networks who canceled the date that they agreed to have it on. That's not Wilder's fault. So
I think Bob. I think Bob and them want all the money they can squeeze out of it. Now here's another. I'll throw another bone out there. Hey, didn't Fury pull something similar with Klitschko? He didn't give Klitschko a rematch either.
Oh, no, they sold tickets to it and he pulled out.
What's up?
So I mean, he's got it. He does have Fury does have a track record of certain things.
Right, he was obligated to that Klitschko rematch, and he pulled out twice, not once but twice. He pulled out twice in that fight, and then it let like I said though, Fury is that's why he's one of those guys that you don't know how you can trust him. It's like, dude, it's like he's like a chameleon. He's like he takes positions on one situation. He'll take a position on one situation, and then he'll turn his back on. And then he'll start turning his back on that position. So it's like, I don't know,
even
man.
As a fighter, as a fighter.
No, but it's more than dude as a fighter. Dude, like, is kind of a scumbag. Like,
no.
Really what it is.
Hey, I'm not denying that. I'm just saying. I'm saying even as a fighter, like, look, going into that first Wilder fight, I don't know, but am I the only one here that thought he was going to get knocked the fuck out?
We all
coming off the way he looked against Safiri and the world's second best Albanian cruiserweight.
And only did I think he was gonna get knocked the fuck out? He did get knocked the fuck out. He just got up. He just woke up and beat the count.
Like it was the Undertaker shit.
He just woke up. That's it.
Well, hey, Ernest Terry, shout out to Ernest Terry in the chat. He says, look, all Wilder had to do was take care of business in the first fight, destroy him in the first fight, but we wouldn't be here if he had done that. Now, this is me, an Alabama boy, but you know what? Let me say that is true. Wilder did admit that he made mistakes in that first fight. He could have beaten Fury in that fight if he had listened to Mark Brealey and focused on the body more often than try to focus on the headshots. Because you could tell Wilder was telegraphing the headshots, and that's what Fury was waiting for. And there was some points in that fight, and a couple of rounds where Wilder was winning the exchanges when he was focused on the body rather than the head. And then Wilder just lost focus on it because he wanted to do more head hunting. And that was his mistake he made. He acknowledged it, and so that's a good point there.
I would say that he did try to. I would say he did try to do the head thing, but focus on the body, and he landed some great shots of the body. But Fury didn't make it easy because he started pumping that jab to Wilder's head, and he was down low. Right? It wasn't just. He wasn't able, and I believe round 7, round 8, it's a really hot contested round, and it's a hard round to score because of that. Like, do you score body shots? Do you score a straight to the body the same way you score a jab to the head?
Right. Yeah, it's a very tough round to score. It was very nip and tuck, and the Fury had some very good defense as well. You have to take that into account as far as the scoring criteria.
Listen, so Fury might be better than him. Also, it's not like if you take care of business. What if he's not able to take care of business, right? What if Fury happens to just be better than Deontay Wilder? That is a separate issue rather than should they get in the ring to prove it, and are they contractually obligated to do it? Oh, and are they ethically obligated to do it, right? So there's two different there's distinctions there, and I think there's room for the discussion and for the truth to actually just be revealed. Is this an issue of you're just unethical, or is this an issue of you being? Is this an issue of you are just pursuing your best the best road for your career? You would fight Wilder, but you don't have to. The contract expired. And it's honor code, but whatever. Money before that. I don't have honor. I don't actually have character like that. I'd rather pursue my career. And you can make a distinction about his character if you want. I mean, a judgment about his character if you want. But if he reveals it to you, that's just is what it is.
Yeah. So Mr. Schultz is like, look, man, Wilder's been quiet as a mouse ever since the rematch. Why did he wait till after Fury moved on to say all this? I mean, it's a good question, but it's because I thought about that myself too. But it's also worth arguing that maybe Wilder thought and was under the assumption that they were going to fight in the third fight anyway. So he said in the interview with Fred, said that, look, I was taking care of some other business outside of boxing, so which was personal matters. So I wanted to take care of that, and it took some time to do that. So that's what he said. But I mean, take it as you will. But it is the timing of it. It is questionable. But this is what Wilder said. But Angel Santos said, "Yo, what's wrong with Devin Alexander? I mean, he is on Twitter asking what's everyone so happy about, talking about reparations. Is he okay? Does he need the fight. I mean, he saw Twitter shit on people celebrating. Well, I guess let's just say this. The reparation talk. Okay, I know we talked about this on EJ's channel yesterday. I know Smoke was there too. But let me just say this: it's not reparations is not about us asking for a government handout. We're not asking that. All we're asking for what's owed to us, given the fact that we were treated very poorly. We were under enslavement, under forced labor for going back to 700 years. Okay, didn't have any rights to our name, and yet we're responsible for why this country has its infrastructure for what it is right now, for the most part. African Americans don't get enough credit for that. And to me, to pay back the injustice that's been happening to us for years and years and years, reparations is the right way to apologize for that. That's just my take on it. If Devin Alexander can understand that, then he on crack. That's just my thing.
Can I chime in? So the fact of the matter is this: that the United States of America was built on the back of slave labor. That's just the fact of the matter. There's no getting around that. And seeing is that how this simple truth is oftentimes kicked dirt upon or just outright ignored is a travesty. It is a crime. If you remove African slave labor from the equation, there is no United States of America, period. End of story. Okay, that's just the way it is, and that fact has to be addressed.
US, is it? It's not even just the U.S., is it? It's a lot of the Western, civilized world as we know it, right?
Correct.
Right.
And that's the thing. If you go to reparations, then it's international. It's a bunch of countries, and it is also a bunch of central banks. It's a bunch of businesses, right? It's just
Right.
like when you talk about reparations, it's a huge thing. And I would just say that not only was there slave labor and, on the issue of reparations, just the way that America works today, you actually, you need low labor costs. In order for a business to be successful, you must keep your labor costs low, just straight up. Like you may have more right. That's not even may. You definitely have more rights and more freedoms than slaves did, right? But even today, there is a huge difference. Like there is a question being asked about what will solve America's issue? Is it the solving of the black-white issue? Yeah, that's cool. It's solving the black-white issue. But really, the real issue that is a problem is the haves and the have-nots.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of it is economically one generation has economically to build off of. One generation to the next, right?
Right.
It's actually a community. What does community have to build off? Because
sure.
We're just talking about one individual, right? But now you have to bring your entire family out. So what does that say about your cousins and your friends and all that stuff? Now they're living out of your wallet, right? But you have to actually empower the entire community, and so they can all rise together. And it's not on one family or one individual in the family to lift up an entire community.
Yeah. Let me say this. Bias to the chat said, "Hey Dan, call Wilder a bitch real quick." I already did that, dog. I will say this though. It is a bitch move to throw Mark Breland under the bus, especially to accuse him for spiking your water. I mean, that's all I got to say. But go ahead. Let's continue the conversation, gentlemen. But yeah, though, I mean, Devin Alexander, I don't know. Maybe he was a Trump supporter. That's probably why he's coming out shitting on everybody on Twitter. But that's the way.
Okay. So I think he's saying black people shouldn't be so happy because we're not getting reparations just because Biden won.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. But at the same time, that's how he feels. But maybe he should have worded it a better way. Maybe it's a conversation that it's definitely a conversation we need to have. But go ahead, Mr. Doc.
It's a complicated. It's a complex one. Can we all agree on that?
Yeah,
somewhat.
I mean, it's also an old joke. It's also an old joke, right? Like about black people being happy when OJ was found not guilty, right? It's just like black people are always mad about black people celebrating because we're not all free.
Listen, real talk, right?
Hang on. All I was going to say, and I'm just going to put it out there as a question. I think maybe one part of this is like obviously, conceptually, what we're talking about makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. You're talking about generational wealth, inheritance, et cetera, right? I think where it gets complicated is where does the money come from? Would that be accurate? You guys think that's where
that's real simple. The businesses that are still in operation that profited, and the central banks that are still there.
Right, and I think what the argument would probably be, I'm just speculating here, right? The argument would be that those powers that be aren't going to do that. If they're pushed into a situation of reparations, they're going to make the taxpayers pay for it.
No, the taxpayers.
Just like, hang on. I'm going to bring it. I'm going to smoke. I'm going to bring it full circle here. Bear with me. Going back to, remember when we briefly touched on the concept of the bank bailouts?
Yeah.
Years ago, what happened there? They made the taxpayers bail the banks out.
Right, but that was when the bank was bailing out the country. This is now what the banks owes to the country. This is not what the country owes to the people. The banks.
No. What I'm saying.
Here's the difference, right? The difference is the central bank. The central bank before there was the United States was funding slavery.
No, I get that.
Right?
I get that. What I'm saying though.
At this point, it is not on the government of the United States to pay this debt. It is on the central bank that funded it to pay this debt. Now, there's also the difference there's also a part of it where the federal government was part of it, right? And then that becomes an issue about how everyone needs to, the way that certain families have benefited from it. That is those people, individuals, then can take on some of the burden, right? The central bank doesn't necessarily need to raise the interest rate for the entire government because they accrued a bill.
No, but what I'm saying is the central bank just isn't going to do it if they can foist it onto the American taxpayers. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that they've got more stroke. I mean, going back to the bank bailout thing. Their whole position was, we have to bail out, these failing banks because of the economy. If they'd taken the same trillions of dollars that they gave to the banks and divided it up amongst every man, woman, and child and baby in America, right? It would have been something. I remember doing the math on this. I'm just going to round up here. It would have been like $100,000 per person. Yeah. That would have. Do you really think for a second that wouldn't have boosted the economy immediately? So
right.
My point is you're
conflating ideas. You're conflating the idea that the
bank. No. What I'm saying.
You're going really. Let me clarify. No, I'm just telling you. You're going into a situation where you're talking about the bank loaning us money because of our own fiscal situation versus the central bank paying its own debt because of their own action.
All I'm saying is that the central bank has the power that they've got too much power is what I'm basically saying. They got too much power. They're just not. They'll just shrug it off and foist that off onto taxpayers or whatever. Hang on, Fight Doctor. In the same way that they made the taxpayers bail them out instead of just giving the taxpayers that same money to boost the economy. Sorry,
right,
go
but
ahead,
I'm saying that the bailout was as a result of fiscal policy for the government, right? That is why they did it through the banks. The banks failing was a structural issue with the American economy. So in order to protect the American economy,
bad loans. They were giving out a lot of bad loans.
Had to come in and to stabilize the economy. That is a completely different issue than actually a debt that's owed by the central bank in order to pay people. Like I'll tell you. Right now, let me finish that. Hang on. Just hold on.
Guys. One at a time.
Okay, sorry. I just want to finish so I don't lose it.
Okay, go ahead.
I just don't want to lose it.
Smoke.
Right now, the Fed is offering all of these small business loans to black businesses because of they're more actually negatively impacted from this whole COVID pandemic. This is the broad powers of the federal bank. Now, these loans, right, they're going to be added to the interest rate for our actual economy, right? That this is actually part of propping up our economy. This is not a debt that the federal bank owns, that the Fed actually has incurred for the people. They're just saying, I see that this community has been negatively affected. We're going to make money available, and you guys can pay us back down the road. They can just cut off that last piece about paying us back down the road. You can just actually create programs to generate communal wealth, because that's what was stolen and that's what's needed.
Right. All I was saying all I was speaking to rather was the political power that these central banks have. That, you know what I mean? That's all I was trying to get at. I'm not trying to say that in concept I disagree or anything like that. I'm just saying that the banks, if they don't want to give out the money, they're gonna make the taxpayers do it. Well, that's all I'm saying.
Wait. So here's the thing about the central banks. So the Federal Reserve Bank is actually not federal. It's a privately held, privately owned institution. It has nothing to do with the federal government at all, period. It's a private bank. So what happens with the Federal Reserve is that the U.S. the federal government in the United States does not actually print its own money, if that makes sense. It doesn't. What happens is the Federal Reserve Bank actually prints the money and then loans it at interest to the federal government of the United States. So that's what happens. So
fiat currency.
You're almost there. The Treasury prints the money, but the bank loans it to us, right? The money doesn't have any value without the central bank. We print it, and they kind of they manage how much money is in circulation. Sometimes it's too much, sometimes it's too little, right? And that's at the Fed's behest. They control the money supply, but the actual printing of it we oversee.
Right, exactly. Well, so the Department of the Treasury actually prints the money, but the money belongs to the Federal Reserve Bank, which is then loaned to the federal government at interest.
Right, the value of the dollar, right? So all of our markets are controlled by the Fed. The stock market, that's the Fed, right? All of that stuff, like they prop it up, they can shut it down. How much money's in circulation, all of that stuff, that's the Fed. What a dollar is worth is controlled by the Fed. The monetary policy is dictated by the Federal Reserve. The fiscal policy is set by the government.
Right. So Congress has the purse string. So Congress decides how the money is spent. But it's the Federal Reserve decides how much the money is actually worth.
Right. They give us an interest rate, right? So and then it's part of the worldwide economy, and that's what I'm saying. Like and it's not just the Federal Reserve, right? There's our own, it's our own central bank, but it started under the Bank of England, right? And then there's also the Bank of Spain. There's also there's a central banking system that participated in and was enriched by the transatlantic slave trade. And there's within those entities, central banks, you also have corporations, Lloyd's of London, AIG, like all the insurers of it. You have shipping companies, you have individuals and families. There's an entire way that you need to go about who needs to pay for it, right? And the structure of it. But it's not going to, I don't think that you need to lob grenades at the people who are celebrating for Joe Biden's victory about reparation, right? I mean, I'm not mad that the people are talking about it, right? I think that it's a conversation that's long overdue, but I don't think you need to shame people into the conversation right now. Like, you know.
Right. Wait, can I chime in on that real quick? So let's not get it twisted, right? The Democratic Party is the party of the Jim Crow South. So no one should get it confused. Just because Joe Biden has been elected president of the United States, situations like George Floyd are not going to stop. They're not going to go away. Okay, just because Joe Biden has been elected president, that continues. All right, there's George Floyd situations going on right now all across the country, and that will endure throughout his administration, be it 4 years or 8 years. It doesn't matter. That's not going to stop. Trust. That's not.
You're absolutely right, because of the culture of our police forces, the culture of I'll share a story here. All right. My cousin was a police officer in Alaska. Yeah. He's riding along with his partner. They get behind a car. This car's weaving all over the road, clearly drunk, right? Clearly a drunk driver and a danger to others, right? They run the plates. It comes back as some sort of local politician. I can't remember exactly who or what, right? Long story short, my cousin's like, what are we going to do? His partner's doing the driving. He's like, we ain't messing with that. My cousin files a report. Like, we should have pulled this guy over. We didn't pull the guy over. Long story, short story long. My cousin can't go back to Alaska, much less be a cop again. You get me?
Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
You get what I'm trying to say? It's a problem with the culture of the police.
No.
If you're a cop, what I'm trying to say is, if you're a cop, right, and you see your fellow officer do wrong and you report him, odds are you're going to be out of the force. And in my cousin's case, he can't go back to Alaska. He gets fucked with. You follow?
No, I get that, and you're right.
I'm saying we have a serious problem with the culture of the police forces themselves.
Right. You're right, but it actually goes beyond that. The real problem, the greater truth, is that racism is baked into the fabric. It's woven into the fabric of Western civilization. It is a part of the overall culture of this country.
Yeah.
And Western civilization in general.
I agree. What I'm trying to get at, right, is if you're a cop and you're an honest dude and you see some racist bullshit going on, for example, and you file a report about it, guess what's going to happen? Most likely, you're going to be out. You're going to be out. You get me?
Yeah, of course. But you have to understand that.
That's what I'm trying to say when I say that the fundamental problem is the culture. I'm not at all denying what you're saying about racism, etc. It exacerbates the problem, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Right,
but I think they're based in both political parties, right? So the Dixiecrats became the modern Republican Party, and the Republicans changed into the Democrats. But the Republicans, like, their grand solution was get all the black people the hell out of here anyway. Like, it's not like there is no political party where I feel like has a good history with racial relations in our country, right? I mean, you may have individuals within parties, but not the party platform itself. But when it comes down to it, it's not when it comes down to the issue of reparations, it's not really shouldn't really be part of a political party's agenda or platform. I think it becomes I don't know, it's just sort of counterproductive to the governance, right? But it does need to be handled, right? It needs to be handled some kind of way by the representative, by our elected officials, some kind of way.
I agree. What I was trying to get at, Spoke, is, let's be honest with each other. There's going to be people that are going to politicize it, and they're going to say, oh, okay, well, if we're going to do this, we're going to make, you and you who had, nothing to do with it in your lifetime, we're going to make you pay for it, as opposed to, you know what I'm saying? They're going to play politics with it.
Right. And it also depends on where you go for it, right? So if you make it if you politicize it, but you also make it global, because it is multinational, right? It's not really just about what happened to black people in America. It's really what happened to a bunch of people all over the world.
Yes.
And there was several countries that were involved in it. So if you're going to start talking about reparations, then you might as well start talking about it from its root. But when it comes to the Americans, right, when it comes to us, it's not like the people in St. Kitts or the people in Trinidad or the people in Brazil don't want reparations, and they're not talking about reparations, because they are, right? But we're talking about reparations for us. And when it comes down to this government providing the access to the community that it took from the community, that burden needs to be shared, right? Because it is a shared boon that everybody got. So at some point, you got to just suck it up and understand that, just like the reason why there's roads, The reason why we have a global system is because you actually haven't paid your fair share yet.
Yeah, again, like I said, I don't disagree at all. All I'm pointing out is that I'm pointing out what they're going to do. I'm not saying it's right.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that it is a wrong conversation to have. They need to have it because all of it needs to come down to the truth, so we can get past it. Because really, the whole thing is it's starting to fester and it's just tired, right? And the social construct that is racism is costing us way more than reparations, right? So just get it out of the damn way. I mean, I'm just talking about just the vestiges of racism, of like people like not getting their, not being promoted or not being access to the same sort of schools. All of that stuff is actually drain on our economy. So it's not just the institution and the vestiges of racism, but it's also the root cause and not dealing with the original sin of slavery.
Yeah. Hey, good discussion, guys. I just wanted to jump in and say that, but I want to steer this back to boxing a little bit before I close this out. Now, this is mainly for Mr. Doc. Smoke, you can chime in on this too, but Mr. Doc, if I doctor, you call ourselves a little bit boxing historians, but I will say this though. I'm not sure you've heard about the Larry Holmes recent interview with DJ Flatt. All right. He went after Trevor Berbick, and DJ Vlad had asked him, about, Trevor Berbick's death. How do you feel about that? He said, well, he deserved what he got. And the guy don't like ugly.
Berbick got killed by like a nephew or something like that, right?
Yes, got killed by his nephew in Jamaica. Yeah. And Larry Holmes said, well, hey, God don't like ugly. He deserved what he got. I'm like, what
Jesus, Larry. Larry. Now let's be clear. Larry's got that. This is not out of character for Larry.
The Eastern Assassin.
Larry, I mean, I'm not gonna repeat it, but I think everybody here knows what he said about David Bay.
Oh yeah, I mean, he was even asked about. I'm not go there, but he was also asked about Rocky Marciano, and till this day, he still doesn't give Rocky Marciano.
That's a classic tirade right there. He went in.
Look, listen. Let's address that, okay? I'll be honest. Rocky Marciano, as great as he was, could not carry Larry Holmes' jockstrap. I'm just gonna put that out.
I would argue that what he said about David Bay was more fucked up.
Yeah, I remember. Well, yeah, you remind us, Doc. What do you say about David Bay? I kind of forgot what he said.
You're gonna make me say it, Dan. I'll say it.
I remember. Never mind. I remember. I remember what he said, but let's not go there on David Bay.
Don't make the white boy say that, okay?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say it. Larry is one of those guys. If you guys really respect a guy who likes to say what's on his mind, then there's Larry Holmes, just like Donald Trump. He's not afraid to say. He doesn't care if it's controversial or not. He doesn't care if it's racial or not. He'll say it. That's how Larry is. Okay. To this day, I think Larry is one of those fighters who's bittered because he felt he didn't get appreciated enough as a world champion when he was, when he doing his title reign. And a lot of people criticized Larry too. They're like, Mr. Doc, at that time, people felt that Larry wasn't really fighting the best competition. He was fighting weak opposition during his reign. And, he was criticized a lot. And of course, when he retired, people respected him more and appreciate what he was able to do. But he kind of feels till this day, as Deontay Wilder will say, till this day, he doesn't get the respect that he deserves, like most champions that came after him. He was in an unfortunate situation, right? Because he had to follow up Ali, which was going to be impossible for anybody on, to some degree. And then on top of that, you had the divided championship, right? He had the WBC, but on the one hand, people wanted him to fight, Tony Tubbs, Greg Page, Jerry
Coetzee
over South Africa.
Yeah, Harry Coetzee. Yeah, exactly. But
WBA carousel, the can't get rights.
That was what I was going to say. That's the flip side. The flip side is none of those guys were holding on to that WBA title for very long. Weaver had it for a little bit. Tate had it for a little bit, right? All guys that would have been interesting fights. Don't get me wrong, you're right, but it was a bit of a complicated situation. Then you had the Witherspoon fight, where a lot of people felt like he should have given Witherspoon a rematch.
Yeah,
If you guys remember that fight at all.
I remember. Yeah, I remember that fight. I thought Witherspoon won that fight, but go ahead, Mr. Doc. I thought he won it, but you know what's funny though, Larry?
And then shortly after that, again, I don't know. I don't remember the political specifics of this, but the optics were people were pressuring him to give Witherspoon a rematch. He dropped the WBC, and the IBF anointed him their inaugural heavyweight champion.
Right.
And then he fought, and then he kind of, I mean, he fought some good guys, like Carl the Truth Williams was a good defense, but he also had some Lorenzo Zanons
and the Randall Tex Cobbs.
Larry's Larry's a salty character.
Can I speak to that? Can I speak to that real quick?
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, Fight Doctor. Yeah, go ahead.
So if you want to know why Larry Holmes is as embittered as he is, all you have to do is do some research, look into the lead up to the Jerry Cooney fight. And that tells the whole of the story. Because
that's Don King and Rappaport.
No, actually, it wasn't just Don King. It was the whole of the boxing community at that time.
No, but him and Rappaport. Rappaport was the promoter for Cooney. They were very open about the fact that we're going to play up on the race thing to try and get this, you know what I mean, as big
build the fight.
Before the race thing even became a thing, there was this running ridicule and criticism about Larry Holmes' opponents. He didn't get any credit for fighting anybody. He had like 8 title defenses, and everybody. He was the first Wilder, right? Everybody you're fighting is bums. That's all they had to say about it.
Ronaldo Snipes and Ernie Shavers were not fucking bums.
Well, neither was Ken Norton. Neither was Ken Norton.
That's where he won his title. Yep. Yeah. Ken Norton. Yeah.
See what they were saying, like right in the build up to the Bone Crusher Smith fight, about his entire career as a champion and that fight specifically, right?
I mean, that is true. That is fair to say, though. They thought that's my whole point. The whole point is Larry Holmes' title reign was criticized by a lot of critics because a lot of people felt that he was not fighting the best opposition. But that's not Larry's fault. I mean, we can argue that his run, there were not many great heavyweights. We can argue that other than Ken Norton and, of course, Michael Spinks wasn't a heavyweight, but he was fighting as a heavyweight. I mean, that was early in the 80s, but he was Ken Norton and Irby Schaefer. So, I mean, you got to give Larry credit for that. But,
really, the only two guys off the top of my head here, the only two guys off the top of my head that he left on the table, so to speak, were Greg Page and Tony Tubbs.
Yeah, or even Mike Weaver. Or even Mike Weaver.
And Weaver. Maybe depending on the timing. I mean, you could throw in Harry Coetzee or John Tate.
Yeah, fair enough. But I think Larry went too far with the Trevor Berbick comments. I know he's pissed off because of Berbick's their story beef. He, at the time,
all I can remember is him trying to do like the freaking Hulk Hogan leg drop on Berbick off the car.
But you know what, though? Besides that point, the point is that he accuses Berbick of coming after his wife. I think this was all about. And Berbick,
I didn't know about this.
And Berbick, I remember this at the press conference in '91. Berbick called his wife a freaking call girl. In other words, that's another word for calling her a hoe and a tramp. Yeah.
Oh, I did not. Okay, let's see this. I'm learning something today. I'm learning something. Did not know that. Yeah. Okay. Now you don't do that to Larry. You don't do that to Larry. He's not going to forget. Larry's not going to forget that, brother.
Yeah, that's why Larry. Yeah. Exactly. That's why Larry's so. That's why he does no respect for him after the death. After his death, he's like, dude, disrespected my wife, called her a call girl. You don't go there, bro. That's why what happened to him. I have no remorse.
Now that I know that, Dan. Now that I know that, Dan, I'm completely unsurprised. That's completely what I would expect from Larry.
If a little anecdotal story. Is kind of interesting and kind of on topic and kind of off. I had a business with DJ Vlad. We had a software engineer recruiting business. DJ Vlad is actually a software engineer. This is like in the late 90s.
Right. Fair enough. But you know what? Look, it's interesting interviews, man. Go ahead and take a look at it. You know, he did it a week ago with DJ Vlad, but he also chimed onto this. And DJ Vlad did an interview with Buster Douglas. Buster Douglas even mentioned this too, and I think you know about this fight, Doctor and Doc. The reason why people are wondering why did Douglas take the Mike Tyson rematch, and a lot of people thought that Douglas was scared. He knew he was going to get his ass whooped by more game than focused Tyson. I mean, that was not the point. The point was Don King, that was the fight with Mike Tyson was the last fight on Buster Douglas' contract with Don King, right? What happened was Don King was trying to get Douglas not only to get into a rematch, mind you, Douglas was already out of contract with King. He was only trying to get Douglas to sign on to the rematch with Tyson, but he was asking for Douglas to take a higher split, get a higher split out of his purse. Because you know Don King normally takes 20% out of fighter purses, but given that he was no longer in contract, and Tyson was his fighter, he was trying to get Douglas to pay a higher percentage out of his purse. And Douglas like, you out of your fucking mind. I'm not doing that.
Well, right after Don was trying to get the decision overturned.
I know, you know what? That's the thing too. Larry Holmes was chiming on that too in an interview with Vlad. He's like, look, Tyson needed to take that loss as a man. You know, I don't know why they were going out there talking about the count was bullshit. They lost. They got their ass beat.
Remember, they were out there the next day. They were holding press conferences. I mean, Don King was serious about that, trying to get that overturned.
And that's like fucking Donald Trump doing it, trying to get a decision overturned. It's like, what the fuck, man? I mean,
you know what? It's funny you say that. They did do a lot of business, the Don and Don.
Yeah, they sure did. they're buddies too, but
they did a ton of business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Two crooks in a pod.
Yeah, he also said that George Foreman had ducked the fight with him too.
Oh God!
Yeah.
Oh God! He's been chasing George.
You know what? You can't catch Don in though. You can't catch Don. Don King in a lie. You can't catch Don King in a lie at all. That dude is slick as hell.
So George Foreman ducked a fight with Mike Tyson, or you ducked a fight with Larry Holmes?
No, Larry. Larry's been chasing George Foreman for about 30, 40 years. Larry would fight George right now if he could get it. He's been that's another thing stuck in his craw.
Wasn't that? I think that fight was supposed to happen like towards the late 80s, and I think it was signed, and George pulled out because of some money issue with the money, or the promoter couldn't come up with the initial payment.
I'll tell you what, guys.
Yeah, what happened was. Hold up, Mr. Doc, real quickly. What happened, according to Larry, what happened was that supposedly they didn't have enough money to put down the deposit to secure the fight. So Larry doesn't buy that as an excuse. He's like, no, I don't think he really wanted that fight. That's bullshit. But go ahead, Mr. Doc. Go ahead.
I love George Foreman. Right. I'm a huge fan of the 70s heavyweights. I'm gonna just tell you from now, George wanted no parts of Larry at any point. He didn't want any parts of him. He didn't want no parts of him in the 70s. He didn't want no parts of him in the 80s. Didn't want no parts of him in the 90s. He don't want no parts of him now.
Yeah, I could buy that. Yeah, that would have.
It's a bad style match. It's a bad style match for George.
Holmes would have knocked Foreman out.
I don't know about that. But I think he
Holmes would have knocked him out. Holmes would have knocked George out. Period.
Okay, we can agree. Hang on, we can agree that Larry's gonna whoop his ass. Period. Whether he knocks him out or not.
Larry Holmes, at any point from 1979 going forward, at any point in his career, he would have knocked George Foreman out. Period.
Let me say this. Maybe if he had fought George Foreman in 1974, 1975, I would have believed that, because George Foreman didn't really, I mean, his punch resistance was questionable in his prime years. But if he had fought George Foreman in the late 80s, as they were signed to do, I would believe they knocked him out. No, because George was not an easy guy to knock out at that time. But I would agree, though. I think Larry would have beaten him. It would be a bad stab.
I think we all agree Larry wins.
That Ron Lau fight made you guys think he has weak punch resistance?
No. You have to understand. Here, let me let you in on a little secret about George. You may or may not know. George, even though he was a heavyweight, used to basically cut weight.
Yeah, exactly. He was a lot of weight.
Yeah, he was very, very. I don't want to say he was very concerned about his appearance and all this kind of thing. That's just the truth. And that was part of what made him a better fighter. On top of the psychological part of it, when he made his comeback, is he didn't concern himself with weight or, you know what I mean, and all that. He just let himself come in shape, so to speak.
Fair enough. I mean, it's an interesting interview, man. He had a lot to say. He said that he fought Holyfield with a detached retina. I mean, I don't know. Seems like Larry's making a lot of excuses too, for the most part.
I thought he gave Evander a good fight, considering how old he was and how to, you know what I mean, and all that.
Yeah,
in fact, Evander got people forget Evander got buried. He was getting buried for fighting
Foreman and Larry.
Foreman and Larry back to back. Yeah, fighting old Ben instead of fighting Razor Reddick, for example.
Me personally, I thought Holmes gave Holyfield a boxing lesson, to be completely honest.
Yeah, you could argue that.
I didn't see Holmes winning the fight, but had that been 79 Holmes would have beaten Holyfield.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He did really good. He did really good against Evander. And I thought he had an argument against Oliver McCall, for what it's worth.
Fair enough.
That was a close fight. That was a close fight.
Yeah,
that was a close fight.
But you know what, though? Don't you guys maybe agree that maybe I know this is years ago. Larry's retired for many, many years now, and he's pretty much lived a relatively private life. He's not really in the spotlight anymore as far as going to boxing events, this, that, and third. He just staying in his hometown, running his businesses, just living quietly, technically. But do you think at a point of his life, and yeah, he is he's getting up in age. He is in his 70s now. Don't you think is at a point of his life that he should step back and say, you know what, it's time for me to stop being bitter and just I mean, seriously,
that's not how guys are.
No, I'm just being real.
Dan, come on, Dan. You know Larry.
Did you just see Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe in the same room together? Riddick Bowe can barely walk, and Lennox Lewis is still trying to fight him. He's still talking shit. Like, no, they don't get over it.
Larry is gonna be salty right until they put him in the ground. That's just who Larry is.
I mean, I get that, but it's at a point of time you gotta let that go, man. I guess he just holds grudges. I mean, I guess to fair to some extent. I mean,
I think Joe said about Ali, like before he died, like when he's all shaking and Parkinson's. Like, no, they don't let none of this go.
I think 92 Bud would have beaten 92 Lewis.
I don't know about that.
Well, this is Lewis before he hooked up with Emmanuel Stewart. Remember, he got one punch knocked out by Oliver McCall.
Yeah, that was Lewis. That Lewis was Pepe. He was upright. He was a Pepe Correa, and when he got with Emmanuel Stewart, he made him more of a looser fighter, more of a boxer. It made him got him better with his timing and put his punches together. So that version,
and he would put pressure on Lennox. Like I'll never forget him screaming at Lennox in the Tyson fight.
Oh yeah,
get him the fuck out of here before you get hit with some stupid shit. Like screaming at him. You know what I mean? Like come on.
Yeah, I know. Don't get too relaxed either, because this guy's gonna knock you out with one punch. He's capable of doing it. So yeah, but going back to Larry though, man. Larry just got I love Larry Holmes, man, but he just gotta let some shit go. He's never
gonna let it go. He's never gonna let it go.
Yeah, he flamed Rocky Marciano. Rocky Marciano been retired. He wasn't Rocky Marciano.
Rocky was dead.
Rocky was dead already.
Come on, man.
Like, look, even like last week's interview with Olay, he's still going at Marciano. God damn.
Yeah, at a certain point, you just got to recognize the mentality you're dealing with.
But now, to be fair to Larry Holmes, the press and I think even Marciano's family at the time he was fighting
Michael Spinks.
Michael Spinks,
yeah.
They were taking a dump on Larry Holmes.
Yeah, they were.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not like there's not reasons for Larry to be salty. I'm just saying.
Right. And let's be honest. Right? And let's be honest. Marciano's record does not even compare. It's not even the same. It's not in the same stratosphere. It's not in the same time zone. It's not in the same continent as Larry Holmes' record. It's just not. Let's be completely honest.
No, not at all. I don't think, dude. I think I'll take you one step further, Fight Doctor. Make Marciano fight in that 70s heavyweight scene, and I think he gets his ass whooped by a lot of guys. I'm not 100% convinced Marciano. I'm not 100% Marciano beats Jerry Quarry. How about that? How about that?
Right.
How about that?
The only reason why
I think Sonny Liston had something for him.
Oh yeah, Sonny
Now,
Liston
hang
would
on.
have
I want to hear
blew.
what Fight Doctor
Right.
says about. I
Okay,
want to hear
and
what
then-
Fight Doctor says about Quarry versus Marciano. What do you think?
No, listen, I would agree. He probably wouldn't get the 70s heavyweights were for real. Rocky Marciano fought in what is arguably the weakest era in heavyweight history. Okay, he fought in that post World War II era where basically all the athletes had gone to war, and the heavyweight boxing scene at that time was just absolute garbage.
Yeah,
and you had
but
Rocky Marciano come along.
Jerry Quarry punched up Ron Lyle in what was supposed to be Ron Lyle's coming out party at MSG, knocked out Ernest Shavers in one round, beat undefeated all knockout victory Mac Foster. All right.
Yeah.
So and gave Joe Frazier 2 tough fights. I think what more I think about it, the more I think Quarry beats Marciano on some white on white crime.
Well, you know what though? Let me ask you this, Mr. Doc and Smoke or Fight Doctor. Let me ask you this. Now, Marciano, I agree with you guys. I think Larry Holmes' record is more prestige than Rocky Marciano. But some would argue that, well, at least Marciano got 4 Hall of Famers on his resume: Walcott, Charles, Moore. I mean, Lewis, I know we don't want to give much credit for the Joe Lewis when we all know how that situation went. But those are 4 Hall of Famers that he has compared to Holmes, who's got Ali, which we all know that's a dead man version of Ali. He's got Norton and okay, I know Schaefer's not Hall of Famer, but he's got 2 Hall of Famers on his resume. So you could, someone will argue that he's got better.
Hang on. Okay, here's the argument. Ezzard was a middleweight originally.
Yeah, that's true. He was.
Walcott was 39 years old.
He's got a whole bunch of Archie Moores. He's got a bunch of
Archie Moores, light heavyweight.
A bunch of guys who are not heavyweights.
Right. Jersey Joe Walcott was 39 years old.
And that's probably his best. And Jersey Joe's probably his best win.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Joe Louis was 102. Real talk.
Yeah, I mean, those are arguments that could be made. I'm just saying, though, those are some of the arguments people can make if you're trying to do a resume-to-resume matchup with Marciano versus Larry Holmes. I'm just saying.
The resume is it's a loaded thing. It's not just about who it is; it's who it is on the night of the fight.
I'll tell you what, Dan. I'll tell you what. You might be able to make an argument that in terms of who the very best fighters on their resume, but top to bottom quality, I think it's Larry all day. You know what I mean? Because I mean, once you get past Jersey Joe, Ezzard, and old bazillion years old Joe Louis, the drop off is dramatic. Whereas guys like David Bay, even a Bone Crusher Smith, certainly a Carl the Truth Williams,
Mike Weaver,
Weaver, yes.
And you know what? I would challenge you. I would challenge anyone to go back and just read what the boxing writers of Marciano's day had to say about him. And to put it mildly, they didn't think much of Marciano. They didn't.
No, they did not. Yeah.
No, they didn't think much of him at all. They considered him crude. They didn't. Yeah, they regularly took a dump on Marciano and his quote unquote skill set. So all of this allure that people have about Marciano now, that came after the fact, and I think and unfortunately, I think race has a lot to do with that.
This is what I'm saying. This is why I said. This is real quick. This is why I said I think Quarry beats him up, because my eyeballs tell me Jerry Quarry way more fucking skilled boxer than Marciano could ever hope to be.
Roy had a hell of a jab. I think his jab was underrated. But Don Turner, the famous trainer, said that he thought Rocky Marciano was the hardest hitting guy he's ever seen. He trained with Holyfield.
Yeah, I mean that's argued. I mean, people do say that Rocky.
He's a puncher for sure. He's a puncher for sure.
Yeah, I mean the way he hit Ezra Charles in that first fight, man, that was brutal. I mean, that was bad. I was feeling sorry for Ezra was one of my favorite fighters. I thought Ezra won that fight, but still though, he was taking some punishing shots against Marciano. I'm like, God damn, I could see them, and Ezra was wincing when he was taking them. I was like, Jesus. But other than that, yeah, man. But like I said though, I'm gonna end this video, guys. I mean, it's good talking to you, but I want to say this. Larry, I like Larry, but at some point of your life, you gotta let this bitterness go, man. That's all I gotta say. Just let it go.
You know what? I think that saltiness, it might sound cliche, but that saltiness that he probably isn't ever going to let go is part of what made him great.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
fighters are like fighters are jerks. I mean, like for real mean dude. Like nice guys don't fight. They don't box. They don't punch people. They don't get punched in the face for a living. That's not what Gandhi does. That's not what Yoda does. Like you know, like if you're looking for a monk, you're probably not going to fight it in the ranks of pugilism.
Yeah, you know what though? The thing is too, I think he kind of went far with the Trevor Burwick comments. That's just my opinion. I mean, you're gonna say
but Dan, as soon as you told me the thing about Burbick and calling this old lady a whore or whatever, a call girl. Yeah. Larry's never. If you know anything about Larry Holmes, you know Larry's never, and I mean never, letting that go. He's never gonna let that go. It does not happen. It did not happen.
Yeah, I hear you. But hey, if you guys want to check the interview, man, guys, go ahead, go to DJ Vlad's interview, man. It happened a week ago. I'm surprised nobody's commented on it. All right, but shout out to you guys, man, for joining me.
Appreciate it as always, Dan.
As always, Mr. Doc. It's always a pleasure, man. Shout out to you. Get the smoke. D-Style, who's in there for a minute. As for the chat, Ernest Terry, Mr. Shelton, Amir, Ace Santos, Angel Santos. Shout out to Angel Santos. Bias, Mala. Who else I'm missing here? Shizbiz, Champ Ross, Rock 89, Ross Clot. Curtis Anderson, Kurt Sugar, peace to you, fam, man. Always welcome to have you on. I think I got D-Style. Yeah, I got D-Style. But other than that, I'm going to end this hangout. Oh, yeah, Blood, too. Thank you.
If I can just say on the way out, Joe Biden has now been given 290 votes, electoral votes. It's a landslide victory. And, it's a great chopping it up.
So the other networks finally confirmed Arizona for him?
the AP is now called his presidency, and it's looking at the electoral map says 290.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. But I know AP called Arizona a long time ago, but I'm not sure if the other networks did. So it wouldn't matter in this case. So he got Nevada. So
the AP, for what it's worth, was very what do you call it? Conservative. They held back on calling things, and you know what I mean.
Well, actually, no,
they were the other outlets.
They actually were the first to call Arizona, along with Fox News, and then all the networks were holding back on Arizona. So,
okay. Well, maybe I didn't know about that. I was talking in general, but okay.
Yeah, but fair enough, though. But the decision help desk hasn't called. The decision desk hasn't called Arizona. I have to check on them, but it doesn't matter. I mean, Biden won. He's the president. There's nothing that mathematically, there's no way Trump can reverse it. So, other than that, guys, thank you guys for joining me. Until next time, be out.
Peace.
All right, peace.
Peace.
Peace.